Welcome to this week's episode of Campbell and Jones Meet the Monsters, the podcast where we chart the cinematic legacy of the classic monsters. I'm John Campbell. With me, as always, Brendan Jones.
John, I have a quick question before we begin.
What's that?
Actually, it takes the form of two. First question, and it's pretty vital, is how funky is your chicken? And then, depending on your answer to that, I would then like to know, how loose is your goose?
Oh, my God. I will say, in this week's movie, when they did that, I'm like, man, we are doing the oldest cheer routines here.
Oldest but best. Anyway, yeah, this was a real flashback for yours truly because I don't know reasons. Haven't watched it in a long time.
I don't remember the last time I saw this movie. We are talking about 1992's Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I know for a fact that I saw this after I was already a big fan of the TV show, which really did not help my opinion of this movie when I first saw it.
Wait. Because the whole time I'm watching this movie, all I could think to myself is, this is a great premise. It should be fleshed out in a television show. Are you saying there was a TV show?
Brendan, I'm gonna send you a link to some stuff that I think might really impress you.
Okay, great.
No,
now,
I mean,
again,
it's so interesting that did happen because I had the thought of watching it going like, yeah, I can see where this got expanded into a TV show. It does. It's all a kernel of an idea.
The trick for me watching it was that, except for I did see the movie before the series began, and you came from it the other way, which is understandable. But I sat there going, last night watching it, I said, I have to do a thing where I'm going to try and watch this as a movie on its own merits.
Yeah.
Which, it's okay, is my takeaway. It's okay. It's better than some we've seen. Not as good as others.
I think by Meet the Monsters standards, it's okay. I think it is. Once again, and I think I've used this word on here before. It is so slight as a movie.
Yeah, it's very slight.
So it is just. I mean, I watched it all in one sitting because it does move, but it's even like 87 minutes long. Everything about it is just like, don't bother getting too invested in this. Just kind of let it wash over you. It's harmless. It's light. It's one of my big issues is it's too light. And that's not even in comparison to the show. I think the show does fix that. But I think that, regardless on its own, is it's almost as if every moment in the movie is going, you don't need to care about any of this. Just have fun.
I think,
and so it's a tough movie to like emotionally invest in because it's so above itself.
Well, it is. And I mean, Whedon's not there yet, and I'm.
Oh no,
I'm
he's
sure,
very much not. We'll talk about.
Well, I'm just talking about his skill level at this point. He's not quite what he will become.
I think he was 24 when he wrote this movie, is what I read.
Right,
and that is young.
And in an 87-minute format, this story in an 87-minute format, as you say, is very light because it has all the ingredients we will know from the series, but it can only just hint and touch them, including some of the heavy stuff.
Yeah.
It touches on it, but it can't do anything with it. And this is clearly a director who decided to lean hard into the teen movie part of it, which makes it that much lighter. And the great concept of taking, and I will say this also, his influences are even more obvious when you just watch this as a movie and don't think about the series. You're like going, holy God, I did not know you were that influenced by Teen Wolf. Yep. I didn't know you were that influenced by Pretty in Pink. It's John Hughes all over the place.
Yes. And even as we've talked about things we've watched like Teen Wolf or The Lost Boys, I actually wish it had, and I think the show does have more Lost Boys influence, but Fright Night.
Certainly, yes.
I mean, it is sort of this thing where it's like, and this is not to take, Whedon, for whatever you think of him now, did do amazing work, but you do start to go like, well, it wasn't entirely revolutionary when you look at the
It
lead
was
up of
just the
things.
genre blend,
Yeah.
and making a heroine.
That I think is where it is. The genre blend we saw in things like Lost Boys, Fright Night, stuff like that. It is the heroine aspect of it that I think really is
Right.
the thing that makes it stand apart.
It literally is like he woke up one night after and just went, dude, what if Pretty in Pink had Molly Ringwald at that last dance
Well,
having to take out some vampires?
He
Because
talked.
that's,
He
you
talked
know,
about the whole vision of this movie started with what if the girl who's chased at the beginning of every horror movie stopped, turned around, and killed the monster. That was the inkling of the idea, which is a great idea. I will not. Once again, I will not besmirch the accomplishments or the creative work that Joss Whedon did. He is an awful human being.
Yes.
A total piece of dirt, and I hope he never works
we are
again.
drawing
But
the line between man and art, and I
Yes.
think I speak for both of us. The art really does surpass the man and involved a lot more talents than
Yes.
just him.
And
But
he did
are
write
both fans.
some of my
I'm a
favorite.
huge Buffy Angel fan, Firefly.
Oh my god! I mean, those are all some of my absolute favorite shows. I've read a lot of the comics as well. Just those worlds that they're in, I love it. But I also think, based on what I've heard, it is best if he not run a show or direct a movie again, just for the sake of the people involved.
Well, maybe his time really has passed. I will say it is interesting to see someone at this stage, like at this stage, his age at that time, he really is bridging a world between, and I guess we're about the same age, me and him, but bridging a world between the 80s rom-com flippant quirky stuff, because there's some Valley Girl in this too.
Oh, there's
like,
a lot of
yep,
Valley Girl in this. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was actually the most overwhelming influence I saw on this viewing of it.
Yeah,
Particularly all the Luke Perry stuff.
And, you know, he's adopting all the 80s language, but he's doing a 90s spin on it, sort of.
The music
he's
definitely
bridging
leads you into the 90s. The style of it, the music of it.
We'll talk about it, but one of the things, like I said before off mic, is that this did feel like a movie that was not a vote of no confidence from the studio, but they were taking a very low budget risk on it, because the soundtrack, I mean, if you're boasting two Divinal songs, a Toad in the Wet Sprocket song, I mean, and the Susanna Hoffs is like going, for a movie of the early 90s, these are weak sauce, even though I don't know.
I think they're all bangers, man. I was going to say the soundtrack is one of the things.
This is not a good soundtrack.
I disagree. Disagree with you on that. I love the soundtrack to this movie.
Well, it needed to be a little harder, or a little more, just have something more to it.
Well, I would say that's the whole problem of the movie, is what you just said. But
yeah, exactly. But when the TV show started, 1 week at the Bronze would be Letters to Cleo, but then the next week might be, you know, someone that actually had balls. I just watched this going, oh my god, these are the songs, like that chase in the van. It should be something pretty rocking. Because
I agree with that. I think some of the songs are poorly used here and there. I will give you that. I
think they got cheaper artists. The vinyls, come on.
I would have bought this soundtrack coming out of this movie. I know I would have.
I would have settled for my best of CD of Toad the Wet Sprocket, and then, you know, I don't need to go to the soundtrack for that one song. Yeah, I disagree. Sadly, for an early 90s movie, I thought the soundtrack was real weak, and it did seem another thing where they're like going, well, we spent so much on getting both Donald Sutherland and Rutger Hauer, so this is all you can afford for your soundtrack.
We'll talk about it. I've got a lot of Donald Sutherland stuff on this movie.
Okay.
Yeah. A man who weirdly Whedon almost single-handedly blames for the failure of this movie.
Which is so odd, because to me, he's one of the best things in it.
Unquestioned. The best thing about this movie is specifically the supporting cast, I think. I really like it. Is full of both very well-established, a couple of legitimately, like, two of my favorite actors. And then
the two I just mentioned.
Yeah, Rutger Hauer and Donald Sutherland. And I do think
but
that
you also have Stephen Root.
Oh, you got
and
Root. I was gonna say, then you got some up and comers who are about to be. I mean, Root is building his career as a character actor, but then you've got
Paul Rubens owns every scene he's in.
Paul Rubens steals this movie. He's almost in another movie at times.
And a movie I would love to see. And I thought David Arquette's pretty great.
David Arquette, here's the thing. Another guy who, regardless of whatever weird persona he has in real life, I've always actually really liked as an actor. I love him in the Scream movies as well.
Yes,
I think
his family, he has his own thing, and I like it.
I'm not sure I want to hang out with the guy.
Charming goof.
But I've liked him in almost every movie I've seen him in. So but like I said, I think he seems like a strange man in real life. I think that whole family's a little weird.
Yeah, I think that whole family's a little off.
Yeah, they've all seemed a little bizarre to me.
And they've suffered a sad loss as well.
Yeah, and that person is in this movie.
Alexis is in this movie?
Alexis is the vampire that takes over as the DJ at the prom.
Oh my god, I totally missed that part.
Yeah. Little cameo there. This movie, there's a lot to talk about, and it is always so hard not to compare it to the show. I agree. I tried not to do that as much as I could, but it's very hard when there are things that are objectively not working here that I know are fixed in the show. That's where it becomes really hard to go. I will say
this movie, which had there not been a show, this would of course been a stupid comment, but this movie works very well as a proof of concept.
Yes.
In other words, this feels like a sizzle reel for like, guys, do you get this concept?
It is,
and weirdly, in the Buffy TV show, a lot of this is canon, but slightly different.
I have some statements about canon too, because yes and no is the answer on that.
No, I know yes and no. The high school burned down, and the Watchers are very different in the TV series.
Officially, the canon is that what is canon, according to Joss Whedon, is his draft of the screenplay that wasn't filmed.
Gotcha.
That he then turned into a comic book called The Origin, which you can read from Dark Horse, and it's interesting. I have read it years ago. I meant to read it again, but I couldn't track it down in time for the show. But
it's got Pike and it's got Merrick and
it's got this basic plot, but closer in tone and of course in the comics she's drawn to look like Sarah Michelle Gellar and stuff like that. So
and do vampires poof in the comic?
Yeah. It's I mean I don't even know because the comic version of it was written during the run of the show, so all aesthetics have been made to seem like it's the show. But
gotcha.
But yeah, so that's what Joss Whedon said is the canon is the script I wrote. And I will just say, a lot of the trivia I have is Joss Whedon going, the script I wrote.
Understand? I mean, I can only understand the frustration, or at least it makes sense to me.
I see it kind of both ways, though, right? Because you get as a writer, I get that frustration, but I also get dude, you had no clout and were nobody at the time. It just it was kind of inevitable that it's always one of those things where I go,
okay, TV writer.
Yeah, he's coming off of Roseanne and the failed Parenthood TV show.
Yeah.
Those are his credits.
Because of this, he becomes a script doctor.
Yeah.
And quite successful, even though Alien Resurrection.
But 3 years out in 1995, he'll get nominated for an Oscar for writing Toy Story. He was one of the writers on Toy Story. And also had his hands in a lot of stuff. Waterworld, he did a lot of work on.
What a lot of people don't know, and it is a well-kept secret, is not only was he one of the writers on Toy Story, he also is the backup on You've Got a Friend in Me. The vocals. He came in, Randy Newman, very scratchy throat that day, and Joss is like, I can take it from here. You got a friend in me. And they're like, oh, you're good.
Dude, he would love that story to get out there, because the dude always also fancied himself a musician.
I know.
Yeah, and it's always like
the musical episode, still one of the highlights.
Still great,
of that
and I do love the Firefly theme, which he wrote, and
and I do fucking love Dr. Evil.
Dr. Horrible, yeah.
I mean, Dr. Horrible. Sorry,
I love Dr. Evil too, but
I love Dr. Evil as well,
Yeah.
and apparently he's getting a movie soon.
Let's Can we talk about this poster?
Poster. Yeah.
There's a few different posters, and I do want to talk about the marketing campaign of this in general, because I did some research into the marketing of this movie because I am fascinated by it. But this is really you talk about a proof of concept. This is almost a proof of concept poster.
Well, what's weird about it is it seems strange, even though I think the design is pretty cool.
I actually think it does sell the tone of the movie decently.
Yeah, it does, but it seems strange when you have, I'm going to say this right up front. Christy Swanson is not. She's weak. She's not terrible.
Weak is what. Yeah, that's why I would say the word. It's not that she can't act. I've seen many of her movies, especially growing up in the time I did and the kinds of movies I was watching. I've seen many a Christy Swanson performance.
She's limited, and
yes.
She is certainly not the actress that Sarah Michelle Gellar was. And again, I tried to take that out of my head. I'm just watching what she's doing.
But I think that's on two fronts. I think she's limited, but I also think the script, Buffy isn't as well written as she will come to be in the show either.
Very true.
Like and I think across the board, one of my problems with the movie when I talk about, regardless of the show, not connecting with these characters, is everyone is so thinly sketched in this movie. Everyone is just kind of the stereotype.
Everyone is a stereotype and very broad.
Yeah.
And I know that he was going for some of that as satire and parody, but if you don't give them anything else to do, then how are you ever going to guess at hidden depths? There's like one scene in this movie where she and Merrick have a chat, and I can actually see Christy Swanson's, like, she rises to it because she's talking to Donald Sutherland, and I'm like, this is the best acting you're doing in the thing, and it's very muted. I was like, great.
Yeah.
More of this, but we don't get any more.
No, because I was going to say, that scene stands out because I know exactly what you're talking about, because it's the only scene where there's anything resembling like an emotional beat or connection,
human relationship,
where you're going like, oh, these people are showing a different side of themselves, and it's actually, and I go, oh, and then you're like, oh, okay, well, the movie never really does that again, because none of the relationships,
even with the romance, you're like, the romance doesn't, I mean, it's a cartoon, so they kind of like just like each other, and okay, I guess they're together at the end. But anyway, the poster, what I was saying is, it gets across the concept really well.
Yeah.
It just seems weird that you wouldn't capitalize on one of the strengths, which is undeniably, this is a very attractive, cute actress at the height of her,
Absolutely.
She was just coming into her own. She ends up in Batman Returns. She and Paul Rubens, old pals, I guess, from Batman Returns. So she's on the upswing, and all we get is this anonymous hottie body, probably not Christy Swanson.
No, definitely not.
And it's a cheerleader holding a stake in the middle of a dark field.
Yeah. That's another thing too. The dark field really feels like just a afterthought. I mean, I know it's supposed to be like night,
they
but
went
it just
to
looks like
Griffith Park and they just said, the sun's going down quick. Let's do this.
Yeah, and it's like, I know it's night, but it also just feels like, and also there's just no detail, like
no detail. We don't know where this is, this is LA.
I want to point out, when you talk about the idea of Christy Swanson at the height of her fame, I want to talk about the video case for this. Because that art is what I always knew as the art of this from like renting it or whatever, which is Christy Swanson in the tights and the crop top.
Yeah, her workout outfit.
Yeah, holding the stake with Luke Perry behind her. Because I will say, the marketing campaign of this was a Luke Perry movie they were selling you. If you I watched the trailer. And it is, he's narrating it going, so here's the thing. I met this girl named Buffy, and it sure got crazy.
Well, she is not well known, but this is kind of like the coming out party for her, but he was the draw.
Oh,
he was already Beverly Hills 90210, and
you are talking, sir, about
movie.
Yeah, this is the first one, because I think this was shot between seasons 2 and 3 of 90210. And you are talking about Dylan McKay, sir. This is where I mentioned this a little bit last week. I am a pretty serious 90210 fan, in a not even in an ironic way, but in a way where it's like, it was something I watched as a young person, and I recognize it's not that great, but I have a lot of nostalgia for it. So I enjoy it.
I
That's
think you
kind of
just
my
described
attitude.
anything that people watch when they're young.
Exactly, it's that sort of thing. But it's like the thing where I can, because I have been watching it during quarantine on Paramount Plus. I will say, can we get an HD restoration, Paramount? Jesus Christ, it looks like they just threw VHS tapes up on their streaming service. But I can watch it and go, oh, this is bad, but also I'm going to watch the next episode because I kind of love it. And I find the cast very charming still. I still think that cast is highly likable, even if the scripts are meh.
I would like, and this is an ugly comment.
I love anything that's prefaced with that.
No, I would be totally fine if they could digitally replace Tori Spelling entirely. I never liked her character.
Agreed.
I never liked her acting.
Agreed. 100%. The worst part of the show.
I just don't want her on my screen.
No, I couldn't agree more on that.
Could they take out? She was her character. What was it, Donna?
Donna Martin.
Could they take her out and double the Gabrielle Charters?
Yeah, man. Andrea.
I always thought she was under.
So
really
watch.
underrated.
I will say, and I'm
always
not going. I promise, listeners, I'm not going to veer off into too much. But watching the first season, how much of it is the amount of times Jason Priestley's Brandon has to be like, "Wait a minute, Andrea's actually attractive," but then still does nothing about it. But there are like 4 separate episodes where he goes, "Wait a minute, she took her glasses off and she's kind of hot." She is.
We
She's
were forced to work on a
pretty
class
woman.
project, and I don't know. I think I kind of like her.
I know.
And then 2 episodes later, he's totally forgotten about her and whatever.
Yeah, and they never
it's
do.
all about
they never,
Kelly. It's all about Kelly.
And Jenny Garth, of course, was absolutely beautiful. And Shannon Doherty is always one of those people where she was very attractive, but her personality really stands out in my head, as I know how awful she was on that show. So it's always a tough thing. It's always a tough thing with me. I definitely, because
I could never get used to the fact that her eyes were not level. There's one that's slightly above the other.
But I was there to the bitter end, man. So I also have crushes on like future cat. Well, my Tiffany Thiessen crush came in from Saved by the Bell and continued on 90210.
Yes, I was still watching it when she showed up.
Well,
there.
That's about season. That's when, because Shannon Doherty leaves and you get Tiffany Thiessen, which I think is a step up.
Actually, well, also the character's just not as much of a pain in the ass.
Well, that's another thing too. But okay, this is all to lead to say that my favorite character was always Dylan, and I love Luke Perry. And
Can I just say, I love the fact that in this movie, one of the selling points for me was them addressing what has always been made fun of with Luke Perry. Even as a young man, he's got that forehead. He's got those forehead wrinkles of an old man, and on 90210 he's got the swept up cool like Elvis hair.
High
but I like
hair,
in this one in this one they're like, no, let's pull that down, let's give him some bangs so we can cover that, until the last scene at the dance where he combs his hair back and he's doing this whole conversation with Buffy, and I'm like going, Buffy, why are you talking to that 63-year-old man?
Well, the thing is,
he is good.
He's one of the best parts of this movie.
I agree.
Yeah, he is so. It's the same thing I see when I go back and look at 90210, and I go, I wasn't crazy as a kid either. He's got star quality. You want to watch him.
And he's not very well written in this. It seems weird that he's the love interest, and his storyline, which is just him and his drunk, druggy buddy being like losers, is always a drag, even though I like both those actors. I'm like going, they don't have anything to do.
They make it work, man. They make it. They do what good actors do, which is they bring something out of this fairly weak material and actually make you go. And that's the thing. That's kind of one of the problems, is I'm going like, I like Pike more than Buffy, and that's a problem.
Oh, actually, I don't agree there. I mean, Pike is made, good by him, but I don't think that character is as well written. Buffy,
I don't think Buffy's well written at all in this, though. Is one of the problems.
No, I don't either. But as far as a lead, I don't for a second want to swap them out. I still think that Christy Swanson, with what she is given, is doing fine enough. and I'm drawn to it. It's just that it is what you got with the series, watered down and condensed, and you're sitting there going, this is the weak version of a great idea.
Because it won't let Buffy get to where she gets in the series, because it is 87 minutes. It's so condensed. So she gets to be... You also don't feel the change of, like, spoiled rich girl to superhero that you want.
It's real bluntly done.
You get that quick training montage, and then she's a vampire slayer. And then
you get a quick training montage, I think, with the Vinyls music. Again, I'm like, great. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I thought it was good, man. That's one of the better song uses 100% in this thing. I like that a lot. I don't know, man. But yeah,
well, when I think about you, John, I touch myself. That's the whole thing. I think.
Well, yes, there's of course that, but that's not the song that's in the movie.
No, I know that's not the song that's in the movie. But
anyway,
everyone is doing a better job than the movie really deserves. Actually,
yeah. And that's the thing where I don't think Christy Swanson is terrible, but I think she has her moments, and I think there's another actress in this movie who I would have rather seen play Buffy.
Yes,
there's a infinitely more talented actress, and I believe this is her first movie, Hilary Swank.
Well, she has not become the next Karate Kid.
That's
yet?
After this, and she will also be in a season of 90210, which is where because I always loved Hilary Swank from Next Karate Kid and then to 90210.
Hilary Swank is she is, and I don't know if it's star quality, but Hilary Swank is definitely someone who your eye goes to. Yep. She's so interesting and attractive, but it is just in an odd way.
Well, and if her
hair had been blonde, make her Buffy.
Well, and also, I mean, it is sort of like, because she does Next Karate Kid after this, that's in the Buffy mold. Like I kind of have seen her do it, and once again, I think I've always said this.
However, I will say Christy Swanson does look very athletic. I mean,
visually, I totally understand why you would pick Christy Swanson.
She's not the tiny person that Sarah Michelle Gellar was,
but that kind of works. That kind of worked there because she has that sort of lithe dancer's body, which made the flipping and the stuff. Like, you do believe her as being an ex-gymnast in that way, which they talk about here. Which anyway, I also want to quickly run through these very hilarious taglines. Because the one we didn't say that was on the poster we were looking at first was, "She knows a sucker when she sees one."
It's all right.
Yeah, it's all right. Sometimes it takes more than just good looks to kill.
That's really overwrought.
Pert, wholesome, way lethal. This one actually is the one I like the best. Homework, cheerleading practice, killing vampires. No one said high school would be easy.
Yeah,
I think that's the best of the bunch.
It's getting everything across.
That's the one I think that sells the movie the best of the bunch. It's like, oh yeah,
sure. She's got to fit all this stuff in.
But yeah, one of the things. Let's dive into the movie itself. I have some trivia I can share throughout this thing. But right off the bat, and this is a note I have for this opening scene, which starts with this flashback in the Dark Ages. By the way, the Dark Ages, then we flash forward to the Light Ages. Hilarious movie.
Light, Lite.
Yeah.
Oh, Whedon. Oh, Whedon.
There are moments in this movie where I go, I know they changed stuff, but there are several moments where I go, that's Whedon. And I can picture Whedon at his typewriter going, you've done it again, Joss. But we start here, and this did make me think immediately about, this movie doesn't have much interest in the mythology of this stuff, and the show, of course, is so much more interested. But this is to present that the lineage is always the same person reborn as the Slayer.
It seems to be, except for dialogue later in the movie will dispel that. So that's weird.
What I mean is tough. But then, because then I'm going, well, if that's the case, then there's large chunks of time where there isn't a Slayer, because if one Slayer dies, they have to be reborn and then grow up again, which then aren't vampires. But then you're right, there's dialogue that is like, because the show makes that very clear, like literally the second a Slayer dies, another one is activated.
I think that is still the case here.
It's just, it's not as clear.
But they share, it's not as clear, and I think they do share a sort of dream or psychic link.
Well, that's the thing here,
I
too.
think the indication here, which is not like it is in the show, is that the Watcher is the one that is constantly the same guy, which is weird.
That's
that
even
he
weird.
keeps being reborn, and someday, he'll
Yeah.
go to heaven, as he says. Maybe someday I'll be free of this, and the next chosen one will do what she needs to do and wipe out the vampires.
Oh God, hang on.
But yeah, it is this. Oh, what happened?
Oh, sorry. No, I was just looking at the IMDb here. Sorry, this was a complete derailing. But as I was just still flipping through here, I see there was it looks like a British video design where they used the font and coloring of the show on the cover.
Oh,
of this thing,
that's interesting.
Which is like
sure,
that,
of course, a re-release to
yeah,
cash
but
in
also
and...
like I distinctly remember like this was a Buffy was one of my sister's favorite shows, and she, if I was kind of like meh about the movie, she fucking hates this movie as being like this is a disaster compared to everything the show is. She turned it off like halfway. I was talking to her about it. She goes, "Oh, I got halfway through that thing and turned it off. That's bullshit compared to the show. Are you kidding me?" Because I mean, I will say she's not wrong about like she goes, it's not, Buffy is not as empowered. We'll talk about having cramps when vampires, like she definitely was like, this movie's sexist, man. It doesn't have the thing that like my 12-year-old sister really latched on to Buffy about and stuff like that. So I think to her, this is like, fuck that movie, man. And that's fair. Once again, I because it is more satirical, more parody, more broad in its sense. It doesn't have the same, like I said, I'm a young girl, this is a superhero for me to look up to.
Yeah, I mean it doesn't have that that full the fullest realization, like we were saying.
You're talking about
superhero,
and by that we mean celebrated feminist with no issues, Joss Whedon.
Yeah, it just doesn't have the take that we are used to. And I can see, again, in her case, I'm assuming that she was watching this after having seen all of Buffy.
Yeah,
and now she's watching the movie.
that being like I'm a Buffy fan, but my sister, that's like part of her personality is based around.
Well, this is
Buffy.
proto.
Yeah.
I mean, this is early days, and actually, to tell you the truth, I like the thing with the cramps, and it is Joss Whedon doing a take on the folklore, which is virgins are sensitive, more sensitive, supposedly to the supernatural, the paranormal, and as Merrick says, he goes, it's not a weakness. He goes, that's a warning. You are lucky to have that. It lets you know.
I think it's
so.
More
I don't
just...
see that as a weakness of hers. It's actually something like, oh, I can tell where there's a freshly.
I think it's just a thing about like as soon as you got a woman talking about cramps, we know it's written by a dude. I think perhaps people are reading into it in this like, oh God, of course. I don't know. It is something the show does ditch.
Oh, of course, yeah. She loses all vampire sense.
Yeah. Well, because also I will say the vampires on the show don't make it very hard to spot them. Most of the vampires on the show kind of run right at her.
Yeah, and their heads are bumpy and weird.
Well, I will say I will take the vampire makeup of the show over the shitty looking vampires of this thing any day with the ears and stuff.
The ears are so weird.
The ears are so weird, and these teeth are real janky. It's too much with the fangs to the point where the actors are having trouble talking.
And when you have literally, well, I thought they did in the show also sometimes, but
by having the switch between the two, is you got times without them. Here it's 24/7 with those. When some do better than others, is what I'll say.
When you get the high schooler who turns and comes back to join the basketball game as a vampire, and
Teen
no
Wolf
one,
much?
Yeah, I know, and no one immediately goes, why do you look so fucking weird? No one says anything to him. I'm like, has he always had the multiple points on his ears?
Well, you're also getting to one of my things with this feeling slight is no one is too alarmed by the supernatural goings on in this movie, and that bothered me because all it does is it takes the I literally either word I choose here, the teeth or the stakes are going to be puns out of it though. It takes any kind of weight out of it if nobody is.
Yeah,
everybody
it does
just kind
become
of
this movie is a cartoon. At the end of it, the principal Stephen Root is literally putting detention slips
That
on dead vampires.
that
Is it kind of funny? Yeah, but in
it's
a, just
kind
a
of funny,
dumb way,
but
like
that's one of those where you go, that's kind of
detention
funny.
slip for you, detention slip for you,
But it
and you're
also
like
goes,
going,
okay,
right,
so
those are corpses.
yeah, that's where I'm going. Like, it's kind of funny, but second thought is, this man is insane.
At this point, there are parts of this movie that are about as horrific or grounded as My Best Friend's a Vampire.
Well, that is the other thing too.
Um,
Is there's I know it's PG-13, but it feels honestly it feels even PG, the vampire stuff to me. There's no blood. Even the show, which was a network TV show, had more intense vampire scenes in this movie. There's nothing approaching a scare in this thing, I don't think, really.
no.
And actually,
in
I
fact-
think Paul Rubens is doing a good job in some of his scenes of actually being menacing in a way some of the
Yeah.
other characters aren't. And
Yes,
Rutger
agreed.
Rutger Hauer always carries an air of danger to him, no matter what.
Yeah, even though here he is playing as light as I've seen him, but at the same time he's Rutger fucking Hauer.
He's Rutger Hauer.
So even though he's just kind of like he's having a blast, you can tell, but he's still kind of threatening. Paul Rubens is like, this is a chance for me to be a threat, and he is, man.
Well,
He's genuinely creepy and funny. He's both.
Rubens is one of the big MVPs of this movie, man.
Good Lord, I love everything he does in this thing.
And also, this was a thing where this was post the porno theater controversy, but that actually is what got him this role, apparently, because they go, oh, we like that he has a dark edge to him now. We wouldn't have thought of him before that. So even though that lost him Huey, it got him this, and I think this movie did prove to a lot of people, oh shit, he's like an actor.
Sorry, he's not just one guy.
Yeah.
He's not just one character. Holy hell.
No, and it is sort of the thing. I also, this same year, as we mentioned, Batman Returns comes out, and he has that great cameo at the beginning as as Lord Cobblepot or whatever there.
Yep.
Which is great. By the way, I just sadly see here, as I was looking at Rutger Hauer, we lost Rutger Hauer and Luke Perry just months apart.
Oh,
Jesus Christ, man! I mean, Rutger was older, but still, he was only 75. Luke Perry, that was a gut punch to me. I was always a fan.
yeah.
of
I
his.
mean, again, I'm not the fan that you are, super fan.
Yeah.
But I always respected him, always liked him, and then I watched literally 2 episodes of Riverdale and gave up on it. But I was like, oh, Luke Perry, you're doing great.
That's the thing. That show
happy
was
to see
terrible,
him.
but anything I saw of it with him, he was great in it.
I was happy to see him.
Any even the cable Western movies he made, I watched, and you go like, these are cheap, but he's fucking great. And the posthumous role that in his scene in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, he crushes it, man.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's
And that
right.
that could have been the beginning of a renaissance, maybe. I don't know. But he was always a guy who I thought, of that cast, you're like, oh shit, this guy could really be in some stuff. I think you know, I always hated the character of Brandon Walsh, not so much Priestley specifically, but I
think Priestley's pretty good too.
I think I
saw him in other things.
I think,
and it was similar. I was like, you have chops.
I think
You're good.
he's good. I think Brian Austin Green is good. I think Ian Ziering has more limited, but some kind of charm.
Someone has to save us from enormous weather-based
That
shark
is,
attacks.
of all the 90210 renaissances we got, that one I never expected. Weird, cold
didn't
B
expect
movie
it either.
hero that he's in 5 of those things. God, those are terrible.
Hey, God.
Those are the worst kind of terrible too, because they're trying to be terrible.
Well,
So anyway,
that is the thing, and that's why
They're
things
not-
like We Hate Movies, they're
Yeah.
not going to review those.
no, how
because-
did this get made? Stop. They did the first 2 and went, all right, if they're purposely doing this isn't fun.
Yeah, if they're just going, look at our wacky celebrity cameos and shit like that. Yeah, it's just they're
There
trying
has
to
to be
make
a
cult movies.
There has to be a sincerity to a lovably bad movie.
Yes,
hence,
indeed.
like Ed Wood. Those were made out of love, man, even if they're terrible. So back to this one. Like I said, we start with this thing, and this also establishes some of the Slayer legend, and it establishes our villain Lothos.
Yeah.
Good
So
vampire
it is-
name.
It looks
I enjoy it.
sure it is a good vampire name. This is another thing of the opening is cheesy. At the same time, both actors are committed to it.
Mhm.
But it does look like for all the low budgetness of this movie, I am sitting there going, this is as good looking as some of the Hammer stuff we've seen.
Oh,
so
totally,
it seems
totally.
to be leaning into it.
Do I
But
have a
you
budget on
have
this?
Dark Ages Watcher saying, it falls to you now. You're the chosen one. You've got the mark of whatever it is, the mark of the covenant or something. And she's like,
$7 million
right.
is what I have here as the budget on this. 7.
Yeah,
that seems
that's
about
what
right to me. Yeah, but
yeah.
once again, is at least for like monster movie standards, this beginning's totally fine. And then we cut to our opening title sequence where we get a full cheerleading performance.
Yeah, because it's supposed to be the big slap, because it's like you are the chosen and it falls to you. You are the special one, DDD, and she holds up the stake, and then it switches to the same hand, but it's holding up a pom-pom. We're in the modern day, 1992, and she's a cheerleader.
And actually, I think that I like that. That's a totally good way to take us right into the tone of this thing. And I think it's something the show will continue to do a lot, which is the juxtaposition between the very serious staid mythology and the 90s teen show.
And suddenly we hear this, and then it goes, dun, 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 dun. No, sorry,
I wish, that was what was the name of the band that did that?
I can't remember the name of the band that did the theme.
Was it Nerf Herder? I want to say it was Nerf Herder.
Oh, I think it was Nerf Herder.
I was like, is it the Star? I think it is the Star Wars reference. Yeah. I mean, truly one of my absolute favorite TV show
it's a great
themes.
Theme.
Not to just keep going there. I am sincerely saying this, right up there with the 90210 theme, which I think also slaps.
Okay.
Well, they're similar. They're both like rockin' guitar, 90s.
It's true.
Again,
this is going straight to your childhood.
This weirdly, as much as I don't have affection for this movie connects to so many things that as a 90s kid I was obsessed with. So very interesting in that way. Not so much Christy Swanson. Even as a kid, I was like, I could have used a better female lead in The Phantom. That's for sure. I love that movie, but she is wildly miscast in that thing. And it sucks. It really doesn't help that Catherine Zeta-Jones is right there, showing her up in every scene.
I know.
Who fits that world and aesthetic so well.
Though I will say, the two of them together, that's a Betty and Veronica situation for me.
Well, sure,
yeah. It's all right.
Don't look up any of her statements or thoughts or beliefs in current day for Christy Swanson.
Has she gone down the wrong
full
path?
mega QAnon Christian nut job.
Well, let me just say that Christy is right about one thing. When JFK Jr. comes back, he's going to tell us all the truth.
Yeah, she's big time anti-vax, pro-Trump, crazy town, making Fox News appearances.
Is there something about, and this is going to sound harsh, but is there something about a sort of C to D grade star whose career flags that they then become crazy conservatives?
I mean,
because when you're looking at a Scott Baio and a fucking Kevin Sorbo and Kirk Cameron, Kane, and you're like, what is this? Dean Cain.
I think, honestly, I mean, we've talked about this over on the Action Shelf because we do a lot with these guys, right? I don't want to say that they're insincere, but I do think there is a thing that if you have a little bit conservative values, it behooves your career to go full crazy.
Oh, well, I mean, Trump is exactly that.
Yeah.
Trump doesn't believe any of this shit, but he leans into it because, again, he's canny enough to go, we've become political, by the way, John. Sorry, this is now a
No, I have,
podcast.
but look, she and Dean Cain, I was just looking at what she's up to now. She and Dean Cain are in some no budget movie called the Obamagate movie.
Holy shit, man.
I mean, I'm talking, the picture I see of Dean Cain here looks like it's filmed in someone's garage. Really bad. And she's on some deep cable Christian version of Sons of Anarchy called Sons of Thunder. That's where she is now, despite what I thought was going to be a little bit of a comeback on she had a recurring role on Psych in the later seasons.
Did she?
As the love interest for Detective Carlton Lassiter.
I haven't gotten that far.
And she was good on there. That
Psych.
was a good use of her, but unfortunately, I think she ran herself out of that by being a crazy person.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway,
Well,
sorry. I
okay.
wasn't sure. I didn't realize. I thought maybe you were aware of that, so that got into that. Anyway.
No.
Yeah.
No.
It's,
and that makes me sad.
It's unfortunate. I know. Yeah. So yeah. And of course, where do we go after this? They're cheering at a basketball game. I like the choice of basketball because it's cheap.
Yep.
You can film it inside because it feels like they should be football cheerleaders. This is a big
except
cheer
I will say
for a
that
basketball
in
game.
California, generally speaking, as
Basketball
far as an entire
is-
state,
Yeah.
they are not huge football, or I mean, slightly more baseball. But basketball is a very California, like that's.
Dude, I've got my
at a high school in
I
California,
got
they
a
care a
Lakers
lot
shirt
more
on
about.
right now, man.
Yeah, there you go.
It's all about it, man.
At her high school, they're wearing Lakers colors. It's
Oh,
yellow and purple.
I noticed that, man. I am a Lakers fan, so this
And
was-
it is where they asked the important questions about how funky your chicken is
Yeah.
and how loose your goose
Jesus Christ, man, because it's 1955. What's so interesting later when Buffy goes, I have some ideas for a cheer, and you're like, man, I don't know, man. I think anything is going to be fresh compared to what I saw you doing at the start of this. So they go from the basketball game, of course, to the mall, because we're still in mall culture in the 90s here. They go, and Buffy's talking about how her grades aren't good. And then they're looking at what looks like a fucking Jubilee from the X-Men jacket. This bright yellow number.
It's a yellow leather jacket, and Buffy's like, oh my god, can you guys picture me in that? And then Hilary Swank's character's like, no, that is out of date. That is like 5 minutes ago.
Did you feel like, not only because she's a great actress, but they don't do enough with Hilary Swank, because they kind of set her up to be kind of a rival for Buffy, but then it kind of comes to nothing?
Well, the pack that she travels with, who are 3 other girls,
right?
They're all a popular pretty girl group.
Yeah, they're like the
But
Mean
the thing
Girls
is-
kind of thing, you know.
Yeah, but none of them really get fleshed out.
No.
I was surprised at the end when one of them, who it indicates at the end that the one she was closest to, who's like the weak kind of the ditziest one.
That's Jennifer, I think. Michelle Abrams.
Sure, but she's the one that ends up with her ex-boyfriend, and it's supposed to be this big sort of like, how could you betrayal? These characters aren't set up, so it's like I don't know which one. I don't know their names.
So that girl who plays Jennifer in the movie, I thought, why do I know her? Beverly Hills 90210 is the answer. She was a brand.
All right,
love
I
interest.
think this is going to be a recurring theme.
Well, I think it is, because I think every young actor of this era was on that show. I think it's why.
Yeah,
because I said even like Swank is on there.
Buffy the show too at some point.
Yeah, all those '90s teen shows needed actors. So I mean, needed guest stars and stuff like that. So you do get a lot of. I see a lot of people where I go, oh, they had an arc on 90210. But
they were a troubled teen drinker.
She had a reputation as a slut, even though she wasn't. Was this girl's thing. Yeah, that's so.
By the way, guys, this is for our listeners. If you I mean, I don't know how it's gauged, but if you have been to the doctor and they say you are running dangerously low on your levels of hearing the word sitch, just one viewing of this film will get your levels of sitch way up.
There's so much of this because oh my god, does somebody say, I love this thing, they want to go see a movie and there is something that is a Joss Whedon line that no teenage girl would ever say, and it's, we don't want to go to that theater, their sound is terrible, they don't even have THX. Fuck off. No teenage girl has ever given a shit. That is something I would say.
And then they mentioned Dolby. The other one's like going, that one place doesn't have Dolby.
No, that is 24-year-old nerd.
Lame.
That is 24-year-old nerd Joss Whedon dialogue. Bullshit, man. No, they don't. They talk about it's not lame. It's they're bogus corn.
Yeah, they're bogus.
That was the other corn. 90s thing that I was going to bring up, which is, oh, no way, man. They're bogus corn. Now that I could
like
see.
their
That reads okay, fine. They don't like the popcorn.
I like their slam against Merrick when he shows up, and
Yeah,
also our
that's
leads are not our leads, but our romantic lead and his buddy.
yeah.
I like the way they use. Why do you hang out with those homelesses? Like it's a plural. It's
There
like those homelesses.
there is
Yeah,
stuff in here.
that's awkward,
There-
Joss. Joss, it's awkward.
Yeah, there is stuff in here. There is good and bad that seems like Whedon dialogue.
It is early days, and I think that
He hasn't
just doesn't
perfected
quite...
the snark yet. The tone is there, but the dialogue isn't crisp yet. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah, and he's still leaning hard on, like, I've done lots of reading. The whole thing where later in the movie that boils down to, and all the rest is silence. And I'm sitting there going, because Merrick sets it up right before he dies, but he doesn't finish the line. And then later on, she goes, all the rest is silence.
Yeah.
And I'm like going, again, wow, man. He's like, is everyone like my Shakespearean? I have read every Shakespeare play. And you like the poetry of the... It's like, stop
well,
it,
of course. I mean, later we'll be able to... Yeah, of course. I saw his Much Ado About Nothing movie in the theater. I was such a fan for his stuff, and it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But
no, I'm sure it is.
It's
I'm sure
totally fun. Well, he got good people in it. You know.
Yeah, I shot a movie in my house.
But it's sort of like I shot a movie in my house, but I have all these famous, super talented friends of mine in it. You know, if you put Clark Gregg in your home movie, it's gonna be better. You know, sort of thing. Where it's like, but anyway, and also it is like, well, that is a beautiful home, Joss, with all that money that I know you don't have anymore because you lost it in the divorce. His ex. Yeah, read that, folks, if you want to read that.
I'm sorry, but Joss Whedon and Armie Hammer are both working at a resort somewhere in Cabo.
Yeah. Well, and then of course,
I hope they're all right.
Read that recent interview that he did where he completely gave himself the kill shot on the career. Jesus Christ. So anyway, they do, and Donald Sutherland does come off as a total creeper here, where he's like, "Hello," and he's just staring at them in the elevator, and they're like, "What's your?" Yeah, I think that's a "What's your sitch?"
Yeah. Oh man, stitches every 5 seconds.
It really is, and they're mocking him for his duster and fedora.
Yep.
We got to talk. How does Donald Sutherland end up in this movie? Because, boy, he is. I mean, we talk about him and Hauer. They're both adding such legitimacy to this real B movie.
When I'm looking at Sutherland reading these lines, and again, I've seen this before, but I'm sitting there going, I know Sutherland, like a Michael Caine, has done plenty of trash.
Yes.
But at the same time, it is just the mark of the ultimate pro. I'm sitting there going, Merrick, there's a gravity to him.
Yep.
There is regret and also his bemusement and then affection for. I'm like, well, I'm buying every second, and I love Donald Sutherland. Watching this, I'm reminded of how much I fucking love Donald Sutherland.
Same here. He is because, like Michael Caine, I think they come from this thing where it doesn't matter what them, even if they're doing it for the money. It is like, I am a professional. I do my work, and I'm going to get into this now. Joss Whedon fucking hated Donald Sutherland and made this very clear in multiple interviews, apparently. Where does I want to find this? Because he did screenwriter Joss Whedon found Donald Sutherland extremely difficult to be around, as Sutherland rewrote most of his dialogue, making the scenes, as Whedon said, incomprehensible.
Well, I think you just got to the core of it. It's not about the performance or the man's talent. It was, how dare he touch my words. I'm a writer.
Apparently,
you're a writer. It feels weird.
Apparently, there was similar tension between him and Mr. Downey Jr. on the Avengers movies for similar things. But yes, in multiple interviews, he called Sutherland both rude and, quote, a dick, which is rich coming from Joss Whedon, what we know about him now. And beloved, I haven't heard, I mean, I don't know, maybe he's prickly, but I haven't heard much negativity about Donald Sutherland after decades upon decades of work.
Well, in the 70s, I think there was drinking and drugs.
Well, I think that was rampant.
And also an ego. I've heard stuff like that, but at the same time...
But also, it's one of those things where it's like incomprehensible. Dude, I saw the movie and he's the best thing in it.
Yeah. And he gets across his, his part. He gets across all of the stuff that you set up about
And
Watchers and
the other thing is, as we've talked about, because he is so good, I am a writer, but I would also think I would listen to somebody, especially at 24, who has that much experience to go, maybe there's a better way to get this across. And I'm going like, well, you were in MASH, so maybe I should... when Don Sutherland goes, when we were doing Clute, I would be like, interesting. Yes, you have some points.
Well, it may have been, instead of getting back up against the wall and feeling defensive, maybe working with them would have been a thing. Maybe saying like, all right, talk to me. I want to hear what you're thinking on it, and maybe together we can create something better. But then again, I don't know how much of on set... the writer.
I have that answer for you. Screenwriter Joss Whedon was so frustrated by how much of his vision was being mishandled that he eventually walked off the set and made a point of never coming back.
Okay, well.
So,
right.
Right there, I think we're seeing there was some preview of his future behavior right off the bat here at the beginning of the career. I think it's
hilarious that a lot of times people's, character sours with wealth and success, and this is so early days that he's so full of himself at this point.
Well, I
it's
think
pretty remarkable.
A big part of it is he is a third-generation Hollywood writer.
True.
He grew up with a lot of privilege, and I think was probably, and I think even he has said this, was definitely raised in an attitude of you're a genius. You're a fucking genius. And so whenever this is the sense I get based on things he said and things people have said about him, whenever anything conflicted with his own concept of I am a genius who writes genius things, it was like, fuck you, you're wrong, because I am Joss Whedon, a genius.
Yeah.
And so I think that, and I can, the idea that they talk about, he was very vocal about, like he goes, that's it! I'm gone. I'm never coming back to this bullshit, And he only got to do the show because he had it in his contract that should there be a spin-off or something, he had to get right of first refusal. That's the only reason he was able to do the show. And, of course, that lived up to him being a god, especially amongst the nerd crowd.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we all contributed to this ego. We didn't know, obviously, but... It was sort of, I definitely, if you had talked to 17-year-old me, I would have been like, he's the greatest writer who's ever lived, of course. Shakespeare who? Joss Whedon.
In fact, I think conclusively you can prove that Joss Whedon, with a time machine, wrote all of Shakespeare's greatest works.
I've solved the mystery of William Shakespeare. All right, so we get the thing. I do like that Luke Perry and David Arquette are like, hey, shut up in the movie, ladies.
Yeah, so basically, the whole deal is Buffy is a high school senior. That can't be canon with the show because she starts out as a sophomore or a junior. Because the show is her in high school for like 2-3 seasons.
It's 3 seasons, so yeah, she's a sophomore when it starts.
Yeah, but regardless, she's a high school senior in the movie. And they do decide to go to a movie, and the girls are having a rip-roaring time. But there are these two quasi-stoners, but actually we see them hit alcohol more often, which actually is disturbing me. I'm like, teenage alcoholics, weirdly, I feel sadder about than teenage stoners.
We don't really get a sense of how old they are. They're out of high school, I think, but not maybe out of college age.
No. I assume they're probably 19 or 20. Yeah. They're probably only a couple years older than the girls.
Luke Perry,
but
of course,
they
35,
are being loud, and so our two guys are like, "Would you guys shut up?" Mm-hmm. And then the girls are like, "No." And this is the first that Buffy sees Pike, and Pike sees Buffy.
Luke Perry is 26 in real life at this point.
Of course he is.
So, but I don't think
he already has 3 children at this
point. Swanson's 23. So, nobody is, of course, how old they're supposed to be. I think Swank might actually be closer to teenage at this point. Because I think she's the youngest here. Maybe not. No,
she
okay.
Was 40,
no, sorry.
41,
No. She's 18 in this. Okay.
Oh, okay.
That makes sense. She looks young, and some of that is just because she continues to be a famous person. I have track for what she looks like now versus then, and I can see as she gets older.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like, who would have guessed which one, in this movie, there's a 2-time Oscar winner.
Actually, in this movie, there are several Oscar winners, and it's very
well, we've already
weird
got, I
to
think Donald already has one at this point.
Oh, yep. So it is interesting, but we're not there yet. So, yeah, this is their first meeting, and then outside the movie theater, we see Buffy get in the car with, wait, she doesn't get in the car. She leans in the car and kisses.
Yeah, over
her high
the
school
other
boyfriend.
over the other guy's friend, who does an air like a hand, thinking of, he's being drawn to that ass, man. He's thinking about it.
Yeah. Actually, I thought the guy who plays the jock best friend guy, I thought, okay, yeah, he's a stereotype. I thought he's pretty good.
I
Pretty
agree,
funny.
and I also like this guy in Dazed and Confused.
Oh wait, no, I think you're thinking of the different guy.
No,
The guy the guy who almost grabs the ass is not the one that becomes a vampire.
I thought
The
that
one who
was that
becomes
guy.
a vampire.
You're right.
No, the one
Okay, then I don't. Then never mind. I like that
one
guy.
who
The guy
becomes
from
the
Dazed and
vampire-
Confused. I like that guy though.
Yeah, I like that guy too, and he's great in Dazed and Confused.
And what's
he's
great
all
is
over
he has-
movies of the period.
He has
and then
this scene with
disappears.
Ben Affleck, and then they're in Dazed and Confused
Yep.
a lot together.
Yep. I guess they must have left L.A. for Austin like immediately after this.
Well,
wrapped.
Dazed and Confused, like we're talking about 90210 or this or anything. Dazed and Confused is another movie that just grabbed up all of young Hollywood of that era, pretty much. That's why another
that
movie
is
that has
a remarkable cast.
That's
But
another
I'd
movie that
say
has a bunch of feature
every single
stars.
one of them gets showcased. That's one of the
Yes.
amazing things about Dazed and Confused is, unlike this thing where blink and you miss them and they have no character to speak of, every single
Yes.
one of the names, even like Mila Jovovich, whose character says like 5 words
She's in
in
there,
Dazed
man.
and Confused, you get
Well,
her.
I
And
mean,
it's
because Linklater's a better filmmaker, and
Parker
that's
Posey, and
that's
everybody.
that's
in that.
designed. Joey Lauren Adams is really good in that.
Yep.
And
Everyone's good in
well,
it.
and that's
Everyone's
also
good.
where, like,
Wrap that up.
Affleck has like one line in this, but then Dazed and Confused is where you actually notice Affleck.
Yeah.
like he's giving a performance, and
Yeah,
fucking Rory.
baby-faced Ben
Oh
Affleck.
my god!
in
I
this,
mean, he
and-
is almost cherub faced in this movie, man.
Yeah, well, there's a
that
little
he's
extra
got
weight.
baby fat on him.
Yeah. There's extra
You're
weight.
like,
He
ooh,
looks
you
like a teenager.
You ain't
Yeah,
you
it's
ain't
amazing.
Batman yet, man. But
love it.
no, and of course Rory Cochran's fucking amazing in that movie.
Oh yeah, of course.
So they do this whole thing. The one guy from Dazed and Confused decides he's gonna walk home. We know he's fucking doomed. Because Paul Rubens is gonna get him. Oh, Paul Rubens on a carousel. Talk about the Lost Boys.
Oh, I know. There's a couple of set pieces in this that take place around, like, I guess the Rose Parade or something.
Yeah.
It's because this is Pasadena, so it's weird that even though most of the movie is in L.A., I guess maybe they live in suburban Pasadena.
Mhm.
But anyway, so yes, there's carnivals and later there are floats.
Yes.
And you're like, okay, all right.
But man, when Paul Rubens, and by the way, Paul Rubens crushing it from the start. I love the way he splayed across this carousel horse.
I know.
But immediately the second I see a vampire on a carousel, I want to hear "Cry, little sister."
Yeah.
With a different Sutherland. Isn't that interesting that both Kiefer and his dad are in cult vampire movies of the same era?
Yes.
Very interesting.
Can you imagine Merrick going up against whatever the fuck?
Well, that's kind of
what
what I was thinking. I'm always like, I need more Kiefer and Donald in movies together. That's
maybe the Watcher's previous stop was down in what was the name of the town?
It's
Shit.
God damn it!
That's the thing he hates about that town is all the damn
it's
fucking
Santa
vampires.
Clara. No, is it? No, it's not Santa Clara. That's a real place.
I
It's
don't know
something
anymore.
like that.
It is something like that. But
I
anyway.
will say this thing was shot in location in beautiful Los Feliz.
Los Feliz.
Yeah.
I used to walk through there all the time.
Well, that's where the high school was in particular. This was shot at John Marshall High School.
I
I
don't mean to brag, but I ate at a Fat Burger very near that. Fat Burger, another chain that hasn't really gotten out of California. But anyway,
No.
So in this
Oh, so
case,
yeah, so Paul Rubin. But once again, none of this is what I'm talking about. Where, and this just kind of robs me of getting too invested in it, or getting anything closer. Is he isn't Rubens is giving a great performance, but the scene isn't presented particularly scary. I don't expect gore because it's PG-13, but how about any sense of? I don't think there's any blood shown in this movie, hardly.
Not hardly. There's a little bit, but really, the whole thing is remarkably bloodless, and also, in this case, this is where our first guy gets bitten. So one of their high school buddies, and Paul Rubens' look is very 90s. At the same time, he looks pretty cool. Again, it's weird that this is Paul Rubens, who at this point is probably 40 something. He had already, of course, done all the.
I think so, but he's also one of those guys who's like ageless to me. Like he's in his 70s now, but looks the same.
Yeah. So, but here, even with the stupid bleached blonde hair,
he is 40. He is 40 in this movie.
He's got a good vampire look to him.
He does.
The eyebrows are great.
It's actually kind of ingenious casting because you don't immediately think of it when you think of him as Pee-wee, but he does kind of have vampire features. He's pale skinned, dark haired. He's got an interesting look.
You put that goatee on him, which he had in the famous mugshot, like when he was at the porn theater. His hair had grown out and he had a goatee.
That's where the director saw that mugshot and said, "That's my vampire."
And that is smart because literally every choice he makes in this movie, which, as we've already said, is slight, every choice he makes, whether it's dramatic, scary, or funny, works. I was just amazed because he's not given great stuff to say, but he'll bring it to life. He's actually written to be very seriously the toady servant. I will, like when he goes to the tomb of Lothos, is like, your day is coming, you will rise, and rubies will drip from your mouth. And I'm sitting there going, rubies dripping. Yeah, you also a fan of Sondheim there, Joss? Anyway, a little Sweeney Todd.
Precious rubies.
Yes, yeah. But even just doing that, I'm like, Paul Rubens, goddamn you.
I know, I love Paul. And this will start kind of a character actor career for him. Because guys like Tim Burton, who, I mean, obviously already made Pee-wee's Big Adventure. But one of the things that the vampire thing works for Burton because there is kind of a goth quality to Rubens.
Sure, yeah.
But then you get him in Mystery Men. He's fucking great in Blow. It's like it's one of those things where I go like, once again, real deal actor. If you can be Pee Wee Herman, you can. That was just one thing that blew up. Also, just thinking about what he was arrested and shamed for is nothing in a Me Too era. Absolutely, it is the most. It would be a blip on the radar now. It wouldn't. Well, now it would be quaint.
Well, it's certainly not about watching porn, and you know, Fred Willard got busted for the same thing.
But these
porn is what every single person does. It's just the
literal
fact that it's
victimless crimes, though, right? Like it's not.
It is totally victimless crime,
no
and the worst thing is that you were masturbating in a public place, but not front of.
But it's one of those things, too, where I always thought it was like, dude, what do you think they're doing in the porno? It's almost like, it should almost be like putting the brown bag on the liquor. If you're going to jerk off in public in the porno theater, I'm going to let it. I think police have better things to do, man. Obviously,
and by the way, I just want to say, how lucky is our audience that John is breaking down what you should do. When it comes to, jerking off in a porn theater.
I'm just saying, maybe we let that slide. I'm not sure we're really saving society too much.
But it is true that the morality has shifted to the point where, no, this wouldn't, as you say, would have been a blip.
And that also makes sense that in probably the last 10 to 15 years, Pee Wee Herman has returned, because it is sort of like everybody's going. And once again, connecting to things, I was a massive Pee Wee Herman kid. That show was everything to me as a kid. And I was probably too young to even understand what had happened and why Pee-wee went away. It was just like, I wish Pee-wee would come back. So now we're in that position where, now that I'm in my 30s, they make a Pee-wee movie to go, remember this? And it was pretty good.
Yeah, I think people missed the character much more than they gave a shit about supposedly something that was naughty he had done.
Absolutely.
Because the character is bigger than anything. It's bigger than him, weirdly. So, I loved the comeback. I thought it's so strange that
Mhm.
this still works. Not as condensely hilarious, and that's missing Phil Hartman too as his writing
Well,
partner.
no question about that. But teaming up with people like Judd Apatow and Paul Rust, not bad either.
Loved
Yeah.
it. Loved
I
it.
really enjoyed that movie and
Me too.
the Broadway show.
Yep.
All right, so yeah, so the once again we talk about all that like we Buffy's parents are a really interesting small note in this movie that are radically changed by the time you come to the show.
Yeah, very
Because
much
here
so.
the joke I do once again, this is Whedon and this is funny, where she goes, "Do you have any idea what time it is?" She goes, "I don't know, about 10." And the mother goes, "Oh, you pay for these watches and they don't even." That
That was clever
funny.
because it sounds like is standard parent setup. Do
Yeah.
you know what time it is? Because she's gotten in late.
Yeah.
And Buffy just goes, "It's like 10:30," and
Yeah.
she's like, "Oh man, these watches."
Yeah.
It's great. What a twist.
And this is for the 87-minute version of this, where it's meant to kind of parody, rich kid high school. The parents being always away or never mind.
Well, they
that
comment
works.
about that. They have, like, one of her friends goes, "So is it true that your jock boyfriend, whose name I can't remember, Jeff or something,
I think it is.
is
Jeff.
it true that he's coming over for the whole weekend?" And she's like, "Yeah, my parents going out of town." And they're like, "You're so lucky. Your parents are like never home."
Yeah.
And it's clear screenwriting. It's just to establish we won't have to deal with parents. It's like, for all the crazy stuff that's about to happen with her discovering her destiny and fighting vampires, we just won't have to deal with her dealing with parents. They've taken off
Right.
the board.
And then obviously
I do think it's hilarious that the movie ends
Mhm.
and literally the first credit that comes up is Candy Clark as Buffy's mom.
Right.
That's before the cast list starts. Then the cast list starts. I was like, what?
That feels like a contract thing on Candy Clark's part, right? Where it's like,
Yeah,
you will
I
mention,
mean, she's okay, but she has like 3 lines of dialogue in the movie, and she's fine.
but she's a
It's
known
casting Candy
person.
Clark.
Yeah.
We know her. And
Oh,
great,
yeah.
good to see her.
Yeah. I do like Candy Clark. She was always good.
I like her too.
Yeah, I mean, American Graffiti, Man Who Fell to Earth.
Candy Clark and I have never had a disagreement or falling out.
One of my favorites of 80s action, Blue Thunder.
Blue Thunder.
Yeah. I'm a big
That is
Scheider fan.
one very advanced helicopter.
Just another movie that is like, it's Roy Scheider, it's Malcolm McDowell. They're bringing it up to another level.
It's Roy Scheider. It's Malcolm X. It's a very strange cast.
Daniel Stern is also in it, which is weird.
Yep.
So yeah, let's see. So they let's talk about you talk about the boozing. We got Luke Perry and David Arquette just boozing on the side of the road.
No, that's what I'm saying. I actually do have a harder time with alcoholics than I do with stoners.
Well, because it's it is infinitely more destructive. That is just fact.
So I'm looking at people in their 20s who, on their night of hanging out, these two buddies, them just hitting back alcohol. I'm like, oh, we're supposed to like Pike, right? Anyway, but so they're hanging out,
which is interesting because Dylan was an alcoholic on 90210.
Sure, and
but there it was treated with severity,
David Arquette's character was a Benny.
Yeah.
Benny has a running theme in the movie, though it's gross, especially when you consider Whedon again later. It's all retrospect, but Benny's running thing is all women are bitches. Like, it's not just that we just met those rich ones. Just all women are bitches. All we needed is the open road, hanging out, being bros. It's awesome. Which I also think there's a strong homoerotic thing where Benny later's like,
dude, there
you don't
definitely
need
is.
them. I can make you one of us, and we can just hang out forever. And I'm like, okay.
A later movie would have made that expressly clear.
Yes.
And I wonder if even an earlier draft of Whedon's script had that clear.
Very possible.
Yeah.
But so this is what they're doing. And then one of the least shocking horror beats I've ever seen happens.
Yeah.
Where they are on the side of one of those hillside roads in California. And they're both drunk. Luke Perry lies down on the pavement because he's so blasted while they're talking.
Yeah.
And David Arquette is sitting on like the cement divider.
Yeah.
And then Paul Rubens pops up and just pulls him down. Now the thing that drives me
and that
drives
even
me nuts
even you saying Paul Rubens pops up makes it sound like it's a minor jump scare. It's not even close to.
It's not even a jump scare. It's like he just comes up and goes, "Oh, great meal."
It's like you're
But
watching
we've
a play,
also-
and it's just like, yeah,
We've also seen, strangely, that Merrick is literally standing just a few feet away. This later on, Buffy does say, "You don't do anything, do you?" And in this instance, I got to say, is this in the script or just bad direction? That literally Merrick watches a vampire that he's probably chased for centuries, or at least his life, grab a victim, and he literally does nothing. He just watches it happen, and then he goes over to the guy who hasn't been nabbed. Luke Perry goes, "This isn't probably the best place for you to take a nap."
I love the idea of going like, well, I better intervene so the hunkier of the two makes it.
Yeah, it's like, well, it's too late to do anything about that guy. You didn't even try.
Let me save the leading man type here.
That's exactly it. He picks Pike up and apparently drives him home.
The other thing that separates this, because once again, he's crafting a character very different than Dylan McKay in this. He also has that soul patch. He's got the hair down and the soul patch. The hair
down to cover his 46-year-old forehead.
Now, see, I always thought that worked on Now 2-0 because he was supposed to be wise beyond his years.
Yeah, kind of. And the squint acting he did, which, of course, again, I always think of the Ben Stiller show when they did their parody. But
all of his lines were like, I don't know, man. Maybe so.
Just good. And actually, it's an acting style of the head turn that you can tell Luke Perry and our good friend John Bernthal have studied. They have studied De Niro their whole lives.
Actually,
every time I see both of them act with the head turns and I'm not looking at you, but I'm talking side to side.
I never thought about two actors I love, and they do have sort of a similar vibe.
Well, they're kind of James Deaning and De Niroing, which is like, And
I love James Dean and De Niro, so maybe that explains my fandom for all these guys.
I
like those kind of cool, mysterious leading men.
And also, you write a lot of slash fiction with all of them at a Turkish bath.
I do. We promise not to talk about that.
But regardless, that is and I don't mind it. It's just that that's an idol of his. You can tell in his acting style. Here, one thing I really like about what Luke Perry does in this movie is he has latched on to the comedy in it, but he is not doing it strictly comedy, which is the best thing.
I think that's why his performance stands out as being like, this is kind of the tone this movie needs. Other people
he has some gawky, weird comedy beats that I'm really enjoying because it's like, that is not what you were doing. And I bet you were having a great time doing this because it's such a break from being Dylan. You get to do all this kind of like,
right? Because
he
Dylan
is like
always
a stoner
brooding.
Loser who just happens to look like a fucking matinee idol.
There was comedy on Now 2-0, but never involving Dylan. Dylan was always dark and brooding and troubled.
I love the fact that like the rich girls look at these two. David Arquette is not a bad looking guy. No. He does look goofy, but clearly you're looking at Luke Perry, even with his hair down in his eyes and a soul patch.
The most handsome guy on
chiseled
screen.
And handsome.
Yeah.
So I love the way they're like, these guys are a couple of sketch homelesses. They're a couple of losers. And you're like going, is anyone surprised that a Buffy Summers could look at this guy and go, but under that is a really hot dude.
The other thing is, it's another one of these guys who, it's unfortunate that after he died, everybody was sharing like, oh, he was the greatest guy who ever lived. Like but I do have a Joss Whedon quote here where he said, after Luke Perry died, Joss Whedon said, the first time I met Luke Perry, we talked about what kind of movie we wanted Buffy to be. I asked if he'd ever seen Near Dark, and he gave me a look of, how dare you, sir? And I knew we'd get along. And you're like, oh, man, that does make me love Luke Perry more. It's like, have I seen Near Dark? Who the fuck do you think I am, man? And every story about him was just like, oh, he was the one nobody ever had any trouble with on 90210. He was like, Tori Spelling had a great story where she had an abusive boyfriend, and Luke Perry punched him out at a Christmas party because he grabbed her and stuff like that. Oh, that's
great.
Where you just go like, that guy was just he was the nicest, most protective, soulful dude. And you're like, God damn, it's always that where you just like, oh, Paul Walker dies. Yeah, it turns out that guy was like a saint. And you're like, fucking hell.
Only the good die young.
I mean, that is, Billy Joel told us this.
He really did.
So now we've got Arquette as a vampire.
He also told me that Catholic girls don't wait. Sorry.
A lot of conflicting messages, man, from Billy Joel. And also, don't take driving advice from him either. Jesus Christ.
No, please.
My God. Uh,
I think if I go fast enough, I'll go through that pole. Yeah.
But the thing I love best
Like
about
the
those
Flash.
stories, the thing I love best about those stories, no booze. They go, was he drunk? No. It's like, oh, then that's 10 times worse. It would have been awful if he was drinking and driving, but to think he was stone sober and just a maniac out there.
Wow.
So I do like Donald Sutherland just appearing in this high school gym here and going, cheer practice is breaking up, and she's like, Buffy, you're the chosen one, and I need you to come with me to a graveyard.
Yeah.
And she's a little freaked out.
She is. She's first, she's just like doing the last of her whatever workout thing, and he's like, she sees him, she's like, oh my god, and then she's like, are you some creepy stalker guy? And he goes, well, I have been looking for you for a long time.
Yeah.
It's all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's essentially,
and this is also, I mean, similar to what we were saying with Luke Perry, a little bit different, but understanding the tone of this, I think Sutherland also gets the tone of this movie where there is an archness to his performance, but but the character is all business.
Yeah, and for the sake of an 87-minute film, he basically says, you come with me to this graveyard and see some stuff. Though he does also already say, what convinces her is when he goes, I know about do you ever dream that you're other people?
Yeah.
And all this. And so basically,
she has the birthmark but had it removed.
Yeah, she had the birthmark, but she had it removed.
Funny.
She goes, that hairy mole, I had that thing removed.
That's kind of the thing with this movie. Everything's kind of, I'm not like laughing a lot. I'm just going like, clever. Like the movie's more clever than it is funny.
Yes, and at one point she actually says, I never asked to be a part of the hairy mole society, which is, it's a funny way of saying the Slayers.
The other movie I kept thinking about that I think loses the supernatural but makes this tone work better is Clueless, which is just a few years after this. And that was kind of what I was thinking about. That is the better parody of this lifestyle. And then it's zeroed in on that.
Though Clueless is also, of course, adopting a Jane Austen for its story
Emma.
structure. So it has some hidden depths that allow the jokes to sit right on top of
that is a movie
depth.
that even like I remember writing off as a young person, like I'm not gonna watch fucking Clueless, right? Because I'm a cool boy, and then of course seeing it later and going, this is really good.
I wrote off Mean Girls and then saw it in the theater just because I had seen everything else and was so impressed. It was like,
same thing.
Holy shit! I think I love Mean Girls.
Why I remember
that was before I knew the name Tina Fey. Really, I was like.
See that I went to Mean Girls because my sister was a big Lindsay Lohan fan at a time when you could be, because she was like the right age for that. And so and it's like, well, we're going to Mean Girls. And I go, well, Tina Fey wrote it. She's really funny on SNL, so I might like it. And then it's really smart. That script is brilliant.
Absolutely.
Tina Fey is a fucking genius. And not problematic like Joss Whedon from anything I've heard. So let's see. So they go to the graveyard. And this is where, like I said, my problems start. Like, Buffy isn't freaked out enough about vampires existing. Everyone is just kind of like, oh, vampires, huh?
Well, especially at the end where they're like going, these are real vampires. And then that whole thing, the end really does fall apart. The end is not good.
Well, the end really stems from tone problems, but also budget problems. Because you're going like, this is not much of a climax.
No, it's not. And then literally you have like the high school students who have not even been a part of this other than when Buffy does say, do you ever wonder about all the people that have gone missing or shown up dead? I mean, other than that, they are just high school students. But in that last fight, you see like even one of her ditzy friends does stake somebody.
Yeah.
Then she herself is pulled through a window, presumably to her death, but still she stakes somebody. You're like, oh, okay, so not just the Slayers, everyone's just joining in.
Well, that's also another thing I thought was interesting is like Luke Perry is as good at fighting vampires as Buffy is in this movie. Really.
Yeah.
And that kind of removes once again, that's something the show makes very good. It's like, sure, Xander could stake a vampire, but he's going to have a hell of a lot more trouble with it than Buffy,
Right.
In the time Buffy takes out 6 vampires, Xander and Willow have taken out 1. Like the super powered aspect of Buffy is just kind of in this movie. They pick and choose their moves because we'll get later the thing where she catches the knife
Yes,
But that's not in vampire
only a
comics.
Slayer could have done that, and you're like, okay,
Yeah, but you're going like, but that's not actually in the service of fighting vampires. Then shouldn't
Yeah.
she have caught something else later to pull that back around? I do put a lot of the blame of this not on Donald Sutherland, but on this director who never does direct a movie again after this.
no, but directs a lot of episodes of Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
No, doesn't direct them. Produces, executive
Produces.
producer
Oh,
in
I see,
name
I see, I
only because of the connection to this
Oh,
movie.
I thought that they were actually hands-on. No, okay.
No. Just both Buffy and Angel, executive producer on all episodes because they had to be. So I'm sure
There
made
you go.
a good chunk of change off of this. But yeah, it doesn't ever really work again.
Well, sometimes it pays off being a middling director.
The only thing they directed before this was something called Tokyo Pop.
Of course. Don't you know Tokyo Pop?
I don't off the top of my head.
No, I don't.
I was going to say, do you? Because this doesn't look like anything I've ever even heard of.
No, I'm not familiar
An
with
American success story that's far from ordinary and far from home. Seems like it's about a Japanese guy who becomes famous in America.
it. Oh.
Yeah. It looks very 80s teen movie.
Let it go, man. Let it go.
No, I think I'm good not seeing that. So she takes out her first vampire here. She takes out two vampires here, actually. She stakes two vampires.
Well,
Meanwhile,
when they go to the graveyard,
this is
she
where
has the cramps,
Yeah.
which lets Merrick tell her what that's about, and then say, "Yep, this is the grave of a guy who's going to rise in a few minutes."
We get the vampires burst because he
the
rises
vampire
up
breaks out,
but then another one breaks out behind her. And
right?
Donald Sutherland just kind of flopping around out here too. There's a little bit of struggle with him.
Well, later we find out she says, "You knew that the vampire under me was going to pop out too, didn't you?" And he goes, "Yes. The whole thing was a test."
Yeah.
So yeah, Merrick basically knew she would save both of them. Basically.
Yeah, but once again, this is where I really have some problems because this action is terrible.
No, all the action's terrible. The action's
and
bad.
it goes even beyond the action. It's kind of that scene we were talking about on that cement divider. Like the blocking in the movie is bad. There's just lots of like, it screams of a director. Like I said, I do put a lot of that on where it's a director who's just going like, I don't even know where to put the actors really in the frame. Yeah. Like it's pretty amateurish, especially if it involves anything beyond people just talking to each other. It's like it looks fine, but there's nothing interesting about the cinematography by any stretch of the imagination. And it's not like the TV show was this brilliantly shot thing, but it at least had some kind of style or verve to it, which I'm sure Joss Whedon would then tell me because he directed it. It did. Right. Whatever. Sure, man. Great. So you can say a lot about Whedon. I never thought he was a particularly gifted visual filmmaker. No. His Avengers movies are pretty flat looking. They're fun,
yes,
but they are when you see it go to the Russos, you're like, oh shit, okay, these guys really know what to do with action sequences.
Yeah, exactly.
And that lighting in that first movie, I'm sorry, is god.
Weirdly looks cheap in places.
It does because it's all blasted with light. There's no shaping of it or anything. It's like TV. It's just put all the light on it.
Plus, also, again, I know that probably budget because they had to have all those people in it. But you realize how many scenes of the Battle of New York are fought on that one bridge-like structure?
Yeah.
Which is also where it ends. I'm like, okay, guys, when you're that set bound, it doesn't look
well.
good.
None of that was shot in New York City, believe it or not.
No, of course not.
But same thing. None of they don't go anywhere in the Russo brothers movies, but they know how to make that work. Great writer, okay director. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's see. Now he's like, I have to train you, and once again, all this stuff happens so quick. It's like I have to train you. Boom, we're training.
Yeah.
It
is. It just quit, and it's like, here's your montage. She's learning how to do a backflip and throw a stake. Oh, but she misses the heart. She hits the dummy in the knee. That's funny. It's all that kind of stuff. And actually, the show did a lot of the same thing.
It did, but it does it over the course of,
right.
You get the sense of her training. It's like they seem to. And where are they training, by the way? Where is this?
It looks like it could be the high school gym.
I don't know. It looked like it could be someone's house though too. Like it depends. I don't know. It's once again
maybe it's the Summers garage.
maybe because she does have like the punching bag set up and it looks like a home. So maybe it's but it is just it just goes to show you just the movie has no weight to it. It has no real locations or feeling to it. Like Sunnydale once again on the show. It just had a feeling. It felt like a place. I'm only using that because this movie just doesn't feel like anything.
Yeah.
You just go like it's a vague cartoon California.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So we get the training montage, and then what is this from? Oh, Stephen Root calls her to the office, which I don't know if this stuff is improvised or not, but Stephen Root's pretty funny here. The way he talks about, you experimenting with drugs? I know you think I'm not cool, but you know I did drugs once when I went to the Grateful Dead.
It is just another, like, it's almost, it is good, because Stephen Root's great.
Stephen Root is a treasure, man. That guy's great in everything.
He is a fucking treasure, but it does seem like they just sat down, or Josh sat down and said, what are the standard scenes in your high school movie? And then said, here's my twist.
Yeah.
So it is just like the thing about, do you know what time it is? Here it is like, Buffy, you can be honest with me. Is it drugs? And he goes, look, I know I come off like growing up. He goes, but I've been there. And then he goes on to like talk about trips he's been on. And so that's the twist, is like he's far more into it and starts really getting lost in his memories of drug trips when he was a teenager.
And all of this stuff is done better
at a Doobie Brothers concert, and she's just rolling her eyes because she doesn't do drugs. It's like, oh, that's hilarious.
And this is done way better, of course, with better on something way better, which is Dave Gruber Allen on Freaks and Geeks has this similar
course.
I'm a hippie, hey man, I've been there too kind of thing, where it's like I know you think I'm not cool, but listen, I am cool. Like that's a classic sort of take. The thing she's doing here is paying attention to this fly that she will kill with a thumbtack, and once again doesn't work because Root doesn't acknowledge that it happened.
Right, sure.
Like, wouldn't the better beat to this be like, whoa, or something like that? But instead, he just kind of passes him by.
I'll write you a hall pass to your next class. Like he's intimidated by the fact that she just killed the fly.
No, instead, he doesn't acknowledge it. It's just another example of like, well, then what is the point of this? It's just more Slayer powers that we already know she has. So anyway, let's get back to the character, the teenage girl seeing this movie really care about, Pike. This is Luke Perry's gonna clear out of town because there's vampires and shit. But first, I better tell my friend the Punisher.
Well, actually, yes, that's true. Oh, is this no? Did he already have Benny show up at the window?
Where is that? Did that happen?
Because I think that's what.
Yes, sorry, I must have skipped over that in my notes.
Vampires.
Yeah, we do, that's a good scene because it's two good actors.
Yeah, and again, it's kind of the takeoff on Salem's Lot, is that Benny appears at the window saying, "Hey man, let me in," and Pike's like, "Dude, where have you been? You haven't answered any of my calls." He's like, "Yeah, man, well, whatever, just open up, let me in," and then he's like, "Yeah, I don't think so. I think you're high." It's kind of like, "I think you're high," or he says, "What are you on?"
Yeah.
Which sounds like a drug thing, but then you cut to the exterior, and he's actually asking him, "What are you standing on?" Because we see that he's levitating like 3 floors above the ground, and David Arquette just kind of laughs like, "Ain't I a stinker? I'm a vampire now." And Pike basically says, "Leave me alone, Benny. You're clearly a vampire now."
Yeah. Which, once again, it's a non-plus Luke Perry going, "You're obviously a fucking vampire, man."
Yeah.
And everyone
that convinces him he's got to get out of town.
Yeah, so that's when he goes and tells Tom Jane or Frank Castle that he's.
Yeah, whatever. He's listed. Is it Tom Janes? Is what his name is?
Is that credited as that? Then they.
Oh yeah, Tom Janes with an S.
Well, that's just wrong.
Yeah.
They just fucking typo Tom Jane's name.
Well, it is possible that he may have changed his own name. He may have started out as Tom Janes.
As Tom Janes. Let me see here if that.
Well, actually, it says his birth name is Thomas Elliott, so forget about that.
Okay, then I don't know, man. Anyway,
but yes, he is credited as Tom Janes.
Who goes on to marry Patricia Arquette.
Oh, That's a very nice couple.
They aren't together anymore, unfortunately, but
Well, but
yeah.
I bet their children are gorgeous.
They do have kids.
There you go.
There you go.
The next generation. The next generation. We'll be see a lot of movies starring Janes.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised. Once again, you just talk about getting that DNA together. My God, talk about the genetics there. Very good-looking people. But this is one where I went, holy shit, Tom Jane! I didn't know you were in this. And he's just in this one scene playing Zeph, who's the guy who owns the
garage.
The garage. I believe this is his first movie, according to the trivia. And he's just like, what'd you say, man? You're supposed to get out of town because it's dangerous? All right.
Yeah.
And then we never see him again.
Nope. Thank God we had that scene.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it is like,
is everything,
dude,
do you have all the parts for my van?
Tom Jane is lucky this scene didn't get cut because this is so cuttable. I think it's really Boogie Nights that will break him out.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. And that's a few years out. So he's taken off in his van, Luke Perry. Okay, so we get Buffy walking down a dark street by herself. A guy, once again, we get...
I liked this scene. I actually thought this was done so many times in the TV series. And, of course, Sarah Michelle is Buffy and is great. But here, I thought, again, there are little glimpses where... sadly our crazy Christy Swanson has some talent, and here where she's pretending to be vulnerable and she's just walking down the street singing to herself like oh, I'm so alone, so vulnerable, oh, I hope no one attacks me, kind of thing. And she's clearly baiting vampires.
This actually
kind of
does
cute.
Feel like a cold open from the show.
Yeah, it does.
Would start with there's a lot of episodes that start with her on patrol baiting vampires or whatever.
Plus, I will say that for a movie that is probably skipping the blood for the rating, it does make all her vampire kills so underwhelming. The way they're shot, and the fact that I don't want necessarily vampires to burst into dust. But it's an easy out.
I do understand that from a just visual standpoint of adding some impact. Right.
Adding some impact, but also it logically is like, this is, if we're going to do a whole series, it'll explain why she doesn't have to keep explaining corpses in the street.
And I said, it works on a few levels because it's a nice.
But in the movie here, yes, it is explosive. Here, she stakes them. There's no blood. They kind of just drop. They kind of just go down, and you're like, oh, all right.
But I forgot.
And Luke Perry literally shoves a stake through a vampire later and makes a quip about now you're a coat rack or whatever. It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
But we see the point of the stake going through the person's chest, and it's bone dry.
Yep.
There's not even red paint on.
That guy had not fed recently, clearly.
It's just like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Not for a second, man. So we get her doing this. This is where they start to, this is where they have that scene where they kind of bond and he's because he says something. She goes, "What, is that an actual joke, Merrick?" And I'm going, "Oh, more of this. The movie need to be." I shudder to say it because I love him. Maybe we didn't need Luke Perry's character in this thing, because it feels like if it's gonna be 87 minutes, make it the Buffy Merrick father-daughter kind of relationship.
Yeah, the father-daughter, mentor-mentee. And in fact, a smarter writer, take this, Joss Whedon. Yeah. A smarter writer would have tried to ground it more by having Buffy actually feel that her parents are absentee.
She needs 30 seconds ahead of me on that, man. That was just what I was about to say, too. It's so obvious. It's there, man. How do you not take it? Because that does come into play. She has an absentee father in the show, and Giles does fill that role. That worked.
And the benefit here is if you get more scenes of them together, her performance would have been even better. The best that she does in this movie is with him. And the best scenes of this movie aren't her staking vampires. It's her.
Now let me take off my writer hat, though, and put on my producer hat and go, more Sutherland means more money.
Maybe so.
Yeah, well, he'll work for this long for this much money, but if we add another week of Sutherland, guess what? I'm sure he was already getting paid the most. I can't believe he didn't make the poster, Because I know they want to sell it to the teen girls, but it seems like the older crowd would have been like, ooh, Donald Sutherland or Rutger Hauer. Because they were very big stars at this point.
I do remember vaguely the trailer, and I do remember that Donald Sutherland gets a lot because they're using a lot of his good lines.
The weird thing about the trailer is that there's not that much Christy Swanson in it. It's a lot of Luke Perry, a lot of Rutger Hauer and Paul Rubens, and a lot of Donald Sutherland.
But
and then
they
Buffy
do the
kicking and
knife
punching
thing in the trailer.
Yeah, it's all the Buffy action. There's not a lot of. Most of the other things are bad guys threatening. Luke Perry, this made-up narration that makes you think he's the main character. Man, I'll tell you, that Buffy chick, she's crazy, man. You know, like that kind of thing. Where you're just going like, I almost wanted to be like, hi, I'm Beverly Hills 90210's Luke Perry. And I've got a new movie coming out that's going to blow your mind, you know.
It's like they would have done in the 50s. Yeah. It's like, hey, everybody, this is Dean Martin. And, you know, one of the things I did over my summer was I went down to Texas, and I filmed something called 3 for Texas, or whatever the fuck it is.
Yeah,
it's
I think it's 4 for Texas.
Sergeant, or 4 for Texas.
Sergeant's 3, 4 for Texas. Yeah, two different movies, but also are they that different?
I just want to tell you about a little thing I did with some friends of mine. It's called Ocean's 11. You're going to love it.
I love those old trailers. The Miracle on 34th Street trailer is one of my favorite things ever. Have you seen that where they're driving around the lot?
No.
And they're driving around the Fox lot. I think it's a Fox movie. And they have all these stars going. It's a producer. It's a guy playing a producer going, well, I've got to get down to the screening room and see Miracle on 34th Street. And he's he goes, well, hi, Cary Grant. I can't talk to you right now. He goes, well, what are you doing, old man? He's like, well, I'm going down to see Miracle on 34th Street. And Cary Grant goes, oh, I hear that's just a terrific picture.
Only in a studio system could you have that.
And it's like
I think the best trailer of all time is Citizen Kane.
Well,
I just where you got the boom mic coming out of the darkness. It's like, this is Orson Welles because you know me from radio. Basically, is what he's saying. But though it's just so chummy, he's like going, oh, here comes one of the stars. Oh, there he goes really fast. Is Everett Norton? Like,
I love the idea that the movie almost didn't matter. We're not going to show you. We're just going to talk about this movie. We're gonna. It's just I could do.
It's like,
some more
there's
of that.
old Joe Cotton. Joe does an amazing job in this movie, and he plays a guy named Jed. And then it's like, here he is enjoying a smoke break. And it's like, what are you doing, Orson?
I would love to have Steven Spielberg come out and just go, I want to tell you about my new movie.
They should go back to that.
The one I love that's a terrible movie in the trailers of it is the Maximum Overdrive with Stephen King. Hi, I'm Stephen King. And he goes, and it ends with him going, I'm Stephen King, and I'm going to scare the hell out of you. And he points right. You. And then he go like, I saw the movie, man.
He goes, I'm going to scare the hell out of you. And then immediately that finger comes back. He goes,
yeah. Well, I will say, he doesn't do any drugs in it, but holy shit, does he look coked up in it, man. He looks like a fucking maniac in that trailer. Hi, I'm Stephen King. And I do love the idea of if you thought my books were scary. The
thing I love is the idea of an 18-wheeler going around with the Green Goblin's face on it. And I think that should be more frequent on the
that one is like, oh, you're one of us, King, man. That is so fucking nerdy that you would put that in your movie.
I still want that to be the default shape of all 18-wheelers.
I agree. He may have been coked up, but he was still a comics nerd, man. And then we'll put the Green Goblin on the front of the truck. Whatever you want, Mr. King.
Okay, absolutely.
Sure thing,
we can do that.
And at that time, Marvel was in no position to like question anything or ask too much.
They didn't even ask him to pay.
No, they're like, whatever. You're Stephen King. This actually helps us. So, meanwhile,
thank you, Mr. King.
Luke Perry's van breaks down, and the vampires are after him, baby. And boy, is this a lame action sequence.
Now is
This is Paul Rubens on the hood of the van.
Yeah, so it doesn't break down yet because he drives with Paul Rubens on the van.
No, it breaks down and the vampires are attacking. He's trying to get it to start, and then when Paul Rubens gets on the van, he does finally get it to start.
Right, and then he drives into a tree essentially.
Pretty slowly though, so everybody's safe.
Also, he because he drives under a huge tree branch, it snaps Paul Rubens' arm off.
Which, I like that idea, but I wish that it was able to be slightly gorier.
Yeah,
It's
no,
cool
it
in
just literally
concept.
flops into his van. He's like, "Oh, I'll play with it for half a second." Like, ooh.
The only thing that is nice about it is when Luke Perry picks it up, the fingers are still moving.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Uh,
But
and then he crashes it, and then he's going to be killed by vampires out in the middle of the field. But then Buffy shows up, saves him,
and immediately takes him home. Ooh,
Mm-hmm.
ooh.
And he's like, I guess vampires are real. And she's like, yeah. He goes, is this what you do for fun or on your weekends?
Yeah.
And she's like, well,
Boy,
kind of. It's mine.
This shit does not work. These two have no chemistry whatsoever.
No.
This is...
Other than being two attractive people, there's no chemistry.
But that's classic movie problem, right? Where you go like, I get that they're both hot, but good Lord, there is no heat between them. Jesus Christ.
Right. And he goes, I was trying to leave town, and I guess I can't do that now. My van's busted. And, oh, by the way, I know Merrick. He drove me home. And she's like, oh, okay, well, if you don't have a place to stay, you can stay at my place.
Which almost
while
seems
I
like
bandage myself up.
And she goes, you can stay in the guest room. He goes, no, I'll stay right here. Wait for the sun to come up. Like he's going to keep
make
watch.
Sure the sun will come up.
Yeah. Hey.
I'm going to protect you, the Slayer.
Yeah. Then Rutger
I'm a man.
Rutger Hauer is pissed at Paul Reubens because he didn't get Luke. Why do they want Luke Perry? I think that silent pause says it all. Because he is going, how could you fail, man, to do this?
I thought they were trying to get Buffy and Luke. I mean, I thought
maybe they were
trying
to lure Buffy. Anyway, he's mad, of course, because he failed at whatever he was supposed to do and lost his arm.
Right.
It's like bad.
And he's like, and Rutger Hauer gets a great toss away where he's like going, and not only am I angry with you and you're gonna stay out, he goes, and do something about that arm.
Yeah,
that looks disgusting.
I do like that line. Rutger Hauer, once again, underwritten, but he brings a presence to it, even if it's not. Yeah, this part is beneath him, though.
I kind of like the hair and mustache on him too, but the ridiculous sort of vampire cape thing that he clearly has like rods in it, so he can swoop it out like Batman's cape, and I'm like, all right, this is a bit cheesy, but that's Rutger Hauer, and he's always awesome. So
it is a lot of the problems. Just like, but it is Rutger Hauer, and this could have been a lot worse. Yeah, but it also at the same time, I'm like, give Rutger Hauer something to do, man. Because he's great. So Buffy meanwhile goes to cheer at the basketball game, and this is where we get vampire basketball player, which. Boy, this scene did not work for me at all. This is so goofy. This guy in this vampire makeup on the court. Are you kidding me?
The first guy that got turned, who's the guy we're talking about from Dazed and Confused.
Yeah,
when you look at his IMDb, I always liked him, and he was always a supporting guy.
Sasha Jensen is his name. He has a very specific look.
Yes, his big, heavy eyebrows, and he's got kind of this pug nose. And he does look like one of the people in high school you would have avoided because he would be an alpha jock type dude. But he is very funny in everything I've seen him in, and I'm like, why did this guy's career just never go?
Halloween 4, that's right, he was in that.
He just sort of
after Dazed and Confused, it's kind of
he kind of just dries up, and then he did something like in 2013 or something. But
Trust Me, I don't know what this even was.
No, I don't know either. But anyway, we
it's
like
a Clark Gregg
Jensen.
film.
Is what?
Clark Gregg.
Oh.
Written, directed, and starring Clark Gregg. Trust me.
Well, that is very nice.
Oh, I might want to watch this now. Oh, hey, good cast.
Oh my God, he was in The Adventures of Rug Raymond. Anyway, so
you talk about the masterpiece that is The Adventures of Rug Raymond.
He was in Bikini College.
Oh my God, we're covering that, right?
But anyway,
aren't there a lot of vampires in Bikini College?
We like this guy, but yes, it is ridiculous. This is very much a Teen Wolf,
and
literally
because he's
riff
so
of a scene.
Comically vampire looking, and and you get one of the other coach going, "Hey, ref, we can't have that guy out there," because he literally flies up into the air and grabs.
Yeah, it's like, come on, they're even in a comedy film, they're seeing something supernatural, and they're just like going, "Hey, that breaks the rules of basketball." Not, "Oh my God, demons walk amongst us."
No one has that attitude, and it's terrible.
He goes up for a dunk, but he is like flying, and not
Yeah.
only does he do the dunk, he remains hovering for a half second or
and
so
then
before
slowly
he comes
lowers
down.
to the ground, right?
And you're like,
yeah.
okay,
Ugh,
yeah, that
God.
would cause more than like, hey, sideline that guy.
Yeah, come on.
But,
No, the coach is so just like, ref, well, we just can't have that kind of shenanigans out there. That's just not.
Yeah.
That's not fair.
So that's basically
And
the bit,
and then he's so scary that rival player Ben Affleck, once again, little baby Affleck,
though tall, but
well,
but
yeah,
yeah,
still big guy
he's
Affleck,
Ben
but
Affleck,
still
but
he's
baby
faced
fat Ben
yeah.
Affleck.
And that the joke there is that he just kind of snarls at Ben Affleck, goes, "Here you go, man, you can have the ball."
Yes, Ben Affleck hands the ball to the vampire guy without fighting him because he's scared of the vampire.
And this really was like
Merrick is at the game.
This one
Merrick gets up.
way more than Tom Jane. I was like, holy shit, Ben Affleck's in this movie.
Yes,
It's so uncredited too.
He gets up. Well, I mean, really, there is no part here.
He
but
does have a
you would
line.
think that they would have latter day put it in IMDb.
Well, now it seems like
But,
they would even put it on the DVD cover that it's like
Actually,
Ben
he is
Affleck
in the IMDb. It does say uncredited.
Uncredited,
But,
he plays basketball player number 10.
But so Merrick knows he's a vampire very cleverly probably because the guy levitated and has pointy ears. But Buffy also gets those cramps again, knows it's that guy, and so she breaks from her cheerleading responsibilities to tackle him on the court.
Oh, it's actually, she does like a slide tackle, like drops to the ground and takes his feet out. It's okay.
By the way, you know what character we haven't even mentioned? Because the character doesn't pay off in any way. Is Natasha Gregson Wagner's character.
Oh, yeah. That's a shame.
She is kind of a proto-Willow. She is a friend of Buffy's, but
Yes.
she's not one of the popular hot girls, even
Right.
though she's beautiful.
Well,
this is at the height of Natasha
course.
Gregson Wagner.
You want
being
to talk?
very-
You want to talk about genetics going into two gorgeous people making a good lord.
the daughter of Natalie Wood.
Yeah.
Come on. And this is her first time on the podcast. We will see her again.
Oh, right. I forgot. She's not actually Robert Wagner's daughter. That's right.
No, she's not Robert Wagner's
That's
daughter.
right. But he did raise her, and she doesn't believe he killed her mother, even though he definitely did.
He definitely did.
I don't see any other scenario that I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, he definitely did.
It's the OJ thing where it's like, you tell me any other scenario.
But here she has just a couple of lines where she's like, we need to come up with a theme for the dance. It needs to be ecology themed. And she's like studious, I guess. And at one point she is abducted by the vampires and sacrificed to them, to Lothos. And that's basically it for her character. I mean, literally. And yay.
I know.
But she is a cutie, and she will be back in Modern Vampires. Is that the one we're doing?
Yes, that is with her and Casper Van Dien.
Yeah.
I, of course, know her immediately from one of my favorite movies, High Fidelity.
Yes, and I also know her immediately from Lost Highway.
Lost Highway. It will have long been on, but at this point, as we're recording this, soon to be, I have a pre-order the Criterion of that.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, they're slowly getting all the Lynch movies on Criterion, and I'm snatching.
But this era of early to mid '90s is kind of.
I thought Hilary Swank was going to be the proto Willow because she wasn't a cheerleader. When they're cheering, we see Hilary Swank in the crowd, so I thought, oh, she's going to be but no. And then they almost kind of make her
Valley Girl. Yeah.
Well, they almost kind of make her the Cordelia though by making her the rival, because later we'll see she has that jacket. But then once again, they don't really do anything with that.
Well, they don't do anything with any of them.
No, that's
all
the
these
problem
supporting
here.
characters. Even though that you've got some good, talented people in
There's just no time.
They're just given nothing to do with them.
That's why, of course, it works better as a TV show, because you do get
Hilary Swank's character betrays her by actually buying the coat that Buffy had the eye
I'm not even
on.
sure I wrote
she's
that
like,
down.
I thought you
because
said
it's
that
such
was out of date, and she goes,
Oh, and she'll do you talk about cartoony, the goofiest cross-eyed unconscious act later, where I was like, I am so happy that you won 2 Oscars after this, Hilary Swank, because that's embarrassing
into a wall and then does I've been comedically head traumatized.
That was the ultimate where I'm like, oh god, I know how good an actor you are, and that just hurts to see. That just hurts, because you're like, you're one of the best actors in this thing, Jesus Christ. It's like, once again, the 2 Oscars, did that make up for it? Let's see. So yeah, so we get then this turns into a chase where she's chasing after this vampire on motorcycle. That was interesting.
Yeah.
I did not expect to see Buffy ride a motorcycle. It's
Buffy,
not cool or exciting because
grabs
nothing
a
in the movie is.
motorcycle from guys who are outside of wherever they are.
And I think this was supposed to be one of the cameos that they wanted to have, but didn't get. I don't know if you know about this. There were several people they pursued for They had people lined up for cameos, but then couldn't afford them.
Yeah, but all those people were supposedly going to be vampires, and these are just bikers.
Oh, I think this was supposed to be somebody though.
Well, all it is she grabs a motorcycle from a guy who then, and this was cringeworthy. This is so weird. Like, these are not high school students. They are bikers.
Oh God, you're right. I forgot about this. This guy drops a slur.
Yeah, well, they're hitting on her like, "Hey, baby, you want to ride on my bike or whatever?" And then she's like, "Actually, yeah," and grabs the bike. That's the big thing. That should be enough.
Mm-hmm.
But the guy says, "You're a pejorative for lesbian,"
which I don't even
basically say,
I don't even follow.
No, what's so weird is that's weird enough. Like, he screams the D word after her, and then he says, "I'm gonna make sure everybody knows." Like, what does this mean?
That girl stole my bike, so I'm gonna go tell everybody you have sex with women.
The internet's not even out. What is he gonna do? He's gonna staple up things to
Buffy
telephone
Summers
poles
is lesbian. By the way, we never get a last name for her in this movie.
That's true.
Buffy Summers
isn't she listed as Buffy Summers in the credits though?
Maybe she might be. Let me see if I.
But I think no one does say it. I think you're right.
It's not till the show that we actually get that confirmed.
Oh, all right.
And Joss Whedon was going, see if they had shot my script.
Oh, Joss.
Still upset.
Why don't you shoot another movie?
There are like recent.
Do you think he still has that house?
No, I know he doesn't. The wife got that house, and deservedly so, from the sound of the way he treated her. Once again, not physically abusive, but apparently just constantly fucking other women. And pretty much rubbing that in her face from the sound of it. Yeah.
Guess who I just cast in our new show? Someone you're going to be fucking in the guest room?
Oh,
yes.
Yeah, that's it, man. Yeah. No, it's sort of the thing where you go like, well, he didn't abuse Sarah Michelle Gellar. It's like, of course not. That he knew that wasn't going to happen. It was like the guest actresses and the smaller recurring actresses who was like, and once again, abuses it, but like you want a bigger part on the show kind of thing.
I kind of wanted to talk to my friend Holly about her cousin. Catherine Town was a guest vampire for a couple of episodes. And
see if Joss ever said or did anything.
I'm kind of curious, but that's also creepy and voyeuristic, so I won't ask.
Just like out of nowhere, just text her like, "Hey, did Joss Whedon ever hit on your cousin?"
Yeah,
seems like he would have.
But yeah, so she does take off on a bike after them.
But once again, it's not exciting. It's not exciting because this director can't shoot action to save their life. My God,
there's no pulse to any of the action.
And that's a huge problem here because that really limits the fun. Because it's like the comedy is only kind of working, but it's not backed up by any action. So let's see. Where is it? Oh yeah. Buffy takes the chase ensues. Oh, this is where they capture her. Now it's Luke Perry's turn to save her because he impales a vampire. This is where he gets his coat rack line or whatever the fuck it is. And once again, it's just like, oh, I guess you're just accepting. Like, number one, I would have two separate reactions to vampires existing, and then if I actually staked a vampire, I'd be like, holy shit. Because even though it's like, okay, yeah, that's a creature of the undead, still, like, you're killing something. I don't know, man. That seems like that would be a big moment.
Yeah.
Whatever. That's the whole attitude of this movie. It's like, whatever, man. They're fighting vampires. We got to wrap this thing up in 87 minutes.
It is almost like they're sitting there going, can we get the vampire part over with so we can get back to the priceless teen comedy that we're having?
The mildly clever humor.
Yeah.
So they're fighting vampires back to. I am just going like, one of the things I did think is Luke Perry's in this a lot more than I remembered. And once again, no complaints in terms of I like him, but it is kind of damaging Buffy's character.
Yeah.
So it's sort of a double-edged sword there. So this is where Donald Sutherland's gonna die because he's gonna square off against Lothos.
Yeah.
And this is apparently a big point of contention with Whedon. In his script, he killed himself rather than be taken by the vampires. And they changed that, and I guess that was a big thing where it's like, fuck off! It's a whole different movie then.
Yeah.
Is it, man? Really? I do think it's kind of a lame death scene for this guy, though.
It really is. But I will say that...
Because there's no action, once again.
Every one of the major death scenes is, of vampires and other characters, it's all weak. When Lothos finally goes, you're like, this? Really?
It is so lame. Only Paul Rubens.
Only Paul Rubens. Because he decides to milk it, and it is, I'm there for it.
That is something I didn't even need IMDb to tell me that he improvised all that.
Oh my God, is it great?
It's so funny.
And then they bring it back in the credits, just because it's like, yes, more of it, please.
Ooh, the way he's just like,
it's sort of like the knee gag in Family Guy.
It's very similar to that, where he's
like, oh, that really, that hurts. And then he goes down, and you're like, okay, he's done. And then he pops back up, going, no, and now I'm kicking the wall because it's still hurting.
That's one where it's like, just let the camera roll. Paul's got. Watch what happens when you cast a comedic genius and just let him go.
God.
It is like
Rubens.
We needed more people with a Rubens attitude in this thing.
Although,
like I said, I think Perry and Sutherland and Howard all find moments where they can do some stuff. And Arquette. I think Arquette shows why he went on to be like a comedy guy.
Yes.
Because he's, like I said, he brings the same sort of weird energy to Scream as well. So let's see. Yeah, so he stabs him. We get Luke Perry and Paul Rubens fighting in here.
Yeah.
But it's all pretty, like, all the fighting I just have is like, they fight, it's lame. He dies before he can finish that Shakespeare quote.
Yep. He's trying to give Buffy some sort of warning about Lothos, his intentions, and this is all very murky. Now, maybe it is clear in the original script.
I'm sure that. I don't think Whedon's entirely wrong that they butchered his script.
Sure,
but I think
is Lothos a prime vampire, and therefore the Slayer has to get rid of him? Like, he's the most important to get rid of, or is he just an old vampire?
It's interesting.
I don't know.
For the show,
and is there romance involved? I have no idea.
For the show being a reset, or not a reset, I should say, and sort of a continuation of at least what he wrote, he kind of redoes Lothos with the Master, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's very similar plot-wise. And more fleshed out.
But here we have Lothos saying things like, no, she's mine. And also, why am I not killing her now? Because apparently Merrick said she's not ready yet.
Yeah. Well, he's killed
weird.
other
Slayers.
Slayers.
Wouldn't you just take a Watcher out? A Slayer out? Wouldn't you just... It doesn't matter.
Because isn't that the thing is that this guy has killed other Slayers in the past and stuff like that, and that's what the dreams are. Is she's remembering Lothos killing other Slayers, I think.
By the way, that was the speech that sort of betrays it being constantly Christy Swanson being reincarnated, because she goes, I kind of remember being this person. I kind of remember, and at one point she goes, I kind of remember being a slave, and he goes, yes, in North Carolina, right? She goes, yeah. And I'm sorry, if you were a slave in North Carolina, you didn't look like Christy Swanson. So
not unless you did something real bad and ended up there. I don't know,
So the Slayer has been women of different races across the world, so forth. Blah, blah,
which is,
blah,
of course,
blah.
the case because with the second Slayer we get in the show is black.
Yeah.
Before we get to my favorite Slayer, Faith. Faith.
Okay.
Yeah. I know. I like a bad girl or a bad boy too. Either way,
I liked Faith, and I do think Eliza Dushku is the right choice. The problem is that Faith was like a lot of TV, bad people, bad boys, bad girls. It's all very TV-ish. In other words, the complications are actually much more through her acting, where you go, oh, there are multiple sides to this character, because the whole thing of like, I'm just so rough. I'm going to dance all night. I might even get a little drunk. And I'm like, okay, all right, yeah, you're a bad girl.
Well,
Watch
I mean,
out.
yes. I mean, I do concur. She is network
Basically, I
TV
wanted
bad.
Faith to have track marks, is what I'm saying.
Well,
God
I
damn
don't know about that. Jesus Christ. I will say that's a nice thing about the comic books that have continued it is they can get a little grittier, and so Faith can be a little bit more legitimately badass.
Yeah,
in the comics.
but the choices that she made in the show, that's where it's like,
No, a lot
crap.
of that is just how much I love Eliza Dushku's performance.
Her pseudo father figure, the mayor, and taking him out with the big old fucking knife or whatever it was. The knife he gave her.
Yeah, man, awesome. Great, great
no,
stuff.
I do love. All right, I love the show. I love the character. Okay,
Season
let's
3,
keep going.
man, great stuff.
Yeah.
So let's see here. So we get Buffy, her friends going like, "Where the hell have you been lately?" And so she's like, "Well, vampires are a thing, and you guys would never understand those, so I'm at it." This is where we get the like, dude, this movie is not long enough to have her reject the call at this point. You know what I mean? Like, because this is her going like, "Why? Maybe I'll just go back to being Buffy, and I don't need to fight vampires." And you're like, there's 15 minutes left in this thing. We can't do this.
Yeah.
That was my thought on this. And she wants to go to the dance, and Luke Perry's like, "What do you care about the dance? Vampires, man."
Yeah.
So
And she's like, but there again, when we say that this movie touches on things the show did, they're touching on the idea of there's that constant pull with Buffy where she's like, sometimes I don't want to be the chosen one. I want to be a girl in high school who goes to a dance.
That works better when there's months and years of her being the Slayer.
Instead of literally she's been the Slayer for 3 or 4 days.
She also doesn't say that when there is imminently a super vampire trying to take over the world, you know.
Sure.
Or whatever Rutger Hauer's doing. I agree. I have no idea what this guy wants, really.
Yeah.
He's bad news.
Yeah.
Beyond, it's just like, yeah, you should stop Dracula. Usually, like, Dracula is trying to do something.
That's another good T-shirt for our podcast. Usually, Dracula is trying to do something,
and the drawing is Dracula with like a kind of look.
Yeah, okay,
yeah, or Dracula, he's trying to map. Yes, it's a to-do list for Dracula, maybe something like that. And he gets all pissed, going like, "How can you just give up like this? I thought you were cool." But this whole conversation is heard by David Arquette's Benny, who for unknown reasons is just hanging out in a photo booth. Yeah. So it's only so they can do this gag that doesn't work, because why are the photos just black? Shouldn't it be the empty backdrop?
Is another thing where you're sitting there going, I get what you're going for, but that is exactly the problem. A vampire doesn't suddenly cause all photos to be solid black. You would see like the chair or the curtain or whatever the fuck is behind them.
Yeah. Because I thought good idea for a gag, poorly executed. But also
why is he hanging out at that spot? Did he know they would be walking? What the fuck is this about?
It's just so he can hear, wait a minute, Buffy's the Slayer?
Oh, shit. This is going to get me in good with Lothos.
Mm-hmm. And so this is where we have Rutger Hauer go, well, we will attack at the dance. And Paul Rubens goes, but why would we wait till the dance? And Rutger Hauer goes, because I love to dance. And I go, okay. Once again, this character's so ill-defined that I go, I don't really know how to take that line. I mean, Rutger Hauer sells it as best he can, of course, because he's a great actor, but it is kind of like, what's your deal, man? Are you funny in this? I can't tell.
Yeah, that's the thing. We're not sure.
No, this is kind of similar, although I think it works generally better than Innocent Blood. There is some of the same tonal problems here where I'm just going like, well, actually, the tonal problems here are everything's just too light. It leans way too much towards comedy.
There's no weight to death. There's no weight to murder of living people, much less murder of vampires. Like, I mean, there is this one bit where she comes up against the basketball player guy vampire, and she goes, you don't want to do this, we're friends, like we used to hang out. And then he's like going, no, I'm a vampire. And you're like, for half a second, that's an interesting take. Like, look, I know I'm the Slayer, but we have a connection. And no, they're not. It's
And
like,
that's
no,
where
I'm a vampire now.
That's where, once again, not to keep doing it, but that's where the show does the thing where it's like, once you're a vampire, like you've literally been possessed by the vampirism.
It's a demon that takes your body but has your old memory, so it's not really you.
So that's why it would be like, I don't fucking care. I know
I
you
don't
were
fucking
friends,
care.
but I'm
Yeah.
evil now. And then of course, yeah, but it's just like, and that's why I think you're right. This does feel like a blueprint for something where you go like, imagine 7 seasons of this, and I go, well, I'd watch that. But yeah, it does. But because that's the other problem, though, as you talk about, the movie leans so comedic, but it doesn't go full on into parody. If this was like a Naked Gun or something like that, then I'm just laughing. But there's not that either, so it's kind of just, it leaves you feeling like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't feel anything about this movie other than that's kind of charming. That's kind of clever. So Buffy goes to the dance. Jeffrey's there with a different girl going, well, you're never around, Buffy, so I'm fucking her now. And it's her friend that we mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Whatever.
And again, that comes out of nowhere, and you're like, are we supposed to feel something here other than,
but hey,
golly,
man,
my friends really are shit.
But hey, man, once again, this is for you 14-year-old girls out there. Luke Perry is there to have, to be your date at the dance.
Thank God. He showed up. He cleaned up.
You talk about Pretty in Pink, man. This might as well be Andrew McCarthy, the way. He cleaned up enough. He's in like a semi-formal leather jacket.
And he combed his
hair and no soul patch.
Oh, that's right. But yeah, so we can finally see all the lines in his forehead. And he does this cute, dumb thing. And it's, again, the filming of this is just so weak. Like, she's all depressed. She's standing in front of like a prop thing in the, and he sneaks around to tap her on the shoulder, and she turns, but there's no one there because he ducked around the other side. Then he's on the other side holding a fake rose, like, here's a thing for you. And she's like, oh, I'm so happy to see you. Now let's dance and kiss on the dance floor. And our friends will go, I can't believe Buffy is making out with that homeless.
Yeah. But I will say he is very charming, and it makes me go,
oh, sure.
Why didn't he do more? Why didn't he get a shot at like a rom-com or something like that? I think he could have done that.
Because he was stuck on that TV show for like 18 years.
That
show ran for 18 years.
It ran for 10 seasons. He was in 8 of them.
Yeah, actually, it is very hard to do films while you're
He did a couple, though. He did a couple because 8 Seconds was good.
8 Seconds, his rodeo movie.
That was good. And then he's great in the beginning of Fifth Element. He's right there at the start. Oh my God, I didn't know.
That's right.
I didn't know he was the voice of Rick Jones on the Incredible Hulk animated series. That's
Who, Luke Perry?
Yeah, the 1996 Incredible Hulk animated series. He was the voice of Rick Jones. That's interesting.
Well, great.
Yeah. He actually did do a lot of voice acting because I think that was stuff you could do in and around Now 2-0.
Yeah.
So let's see here. So yeah, he shows up. All the girls in the eyes are going, oh. I do. One thing I do like, he's got to keep them sideburns though, right? Because you can't shave those off. That's the key to 90210.
Moneymaker.
Yeah, both he and Priestley and the sideburns, man. That was the whole thing on that show. Okay, so he's at the dance. They dance. It's very cute right up until these vampires bust in. The only thing I actually laughed at, like truly actually laughed, is a Hilary Swank line, which is when the vampires show up at the dance and they go, don't invite them in. And Hilary Swank goes, but I did invite them. They're seniors. And I thought that was funny. They got invitations to the dance.
Yes.
And that feels very Whedon to me.
That's very, very Whedon.
That is 100% something that would have been on the show.
The detention slips thing until the payoff, just the very impotent threat of, I have detention slips here, I'm not afraid to use them kind of thing. That felt very Whedon.
That did. The drop him on the corpses did not. That felt like, what is
that's
this?
where it goes into cartoon land.
Yeah.
That's pre-massacre of
because we do get funny. Goddamn, I always loved Armin Shimmerman as the principal on.
Yeah.
One of my favorite lines in the whole series is when he's talking to Giles and he goes, man, I can just smell trouble in these kids. I can smell it. It's like a sixth sense. And Giles just goes, no, that's one of the 5. Funny. That's that we once again, I do think a lot of Whedon stuff is not laugh out loud funny. It's like, he writes banter more than jokes.
It's true. The thing that I
Or it's very
laughed out
cute.
loud on
It's very
still
cute and quippy.
is not thanks to Whedon. It is just Paul Rubens. His death scene always makes
I'm sorry,
me
that
laugh.
was the other thing I actually laughed at. And I also went like, what? Where has been this sense of humor in the rest of the movie? Once again, if the whole movie leaned towards that, and that would be more like the kind of Zucker, sort of thing.
Well, if they had decided to actually say, like, all right, we are going to make this a straight vampire comedy, a la, like, My Boyfriend's a Vampire or something like that, where they're like going, all right, this is a world where things are taken at strangely face value and detention slips on vampire corpses are not wildly out of tone. If they decide to stick to that tone, yeah, this all could have worked.
Definitely. The thing about they just needed it. I actually think.
Are you okay? I think you're about to have a stroke, and I don't want to see that happen.
But I was gonna say, I actually think I like My Best Friend is a Vampire more than this movie. I think it actually coheres better.
I almost agree with you.
I think they're both light. I think they're both slight, but I think that movie knows how light it is. This movie wants to have some weight. That movie never bothers to try and have weight. Same thing with Teen Wolf. These aren't movies that are this movie has more on its mind and has bigger aspirations. So it feels that I'm let down by the slightness more. Teen Wolf and My Best Friend is a Vampire, I'm like, well, whatever. These are just cute.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing that's coming to me is why I probably would I'm less frustrated by them. I am just like, well, these are what they are, man.
Your comfort level is my primary concern. So I'm really glad you're setting us straight on that.
All right. So Buffy starts fighting these vampires, and this all once again, I think some of this is budget, some of this is directing, but it is just like you've just got vampires reaching in through windows and stuff, and it's all just cheap and lame kind of sets and stuff like that. And vampires are basically a horde of zombies at this point too. They're always kind of going, grabbing at people.
They're now that they're busting in and are clearly, they're the people that have gone missing. So they're all locals and possibly some former students.
But the whole thing also, they don't really get into them biting people they don't really show any of that. So it all sort of feels weightless. Like, are innocent students of the dance being killed? Probably, but it's so implied, maybe.
Yeah.
That you're just going like, and then Buffy's outside and she's doing spin kicks and kicking people, but it's all pretty, like the heart of this director is just not in it. It's like,
true.
Whatever, it's fighting.
Whatever.
It does feel like this director goes, I'm making a comedy and I have to put these action beats in.
Yeah, and it doesn't make a lot of sense too when they're doing this, where it's where it is that world where we're being attacked by vampires and everyone is now totally aware vampires exist and they're immediately rolling with it. So again, Buffy is slightly decreased in value here because she's the slayer, but suddenly, like I said, it's like some of these idiot high schoolers are able to break a table and take at least a vampire down.
It's
like, wait a minute, shouldn't they literally be cattle who have no idea how to defend themselves?
Well, and this is also,
she saves the day.
We also, I know that's something once again the show does, and shows only people who kind of, once again, it's only like season 2 and stuff that other characters are able to do that kind of stuff, or it's Angel who is also a vampire.
So with a soul.
Well, obviously Angel was my favorite.
Don't forget.
Angel was clearly my favorite character in that universe because that guy is he's aimed right at me as the Han Solo.
And he just had that huge brow.
Huge. Talk about a guy just tailor-made to be a vampire.
Pro-mag.
And now he's leading SEAL Team over on Paramount Plus.
Is he really?
Yeah, I do watch that, of course. I like that stuff.
I don't judge.
Yeah.
Well, I do, but I do it quietly.
Yeah. I know. It's one of those things where it's like, I know one of my Navy SEAL shows is going to be. So we get the David Arquette, Luke Perry face off. And I thought this was kind of a good beat, them having the holy water in his flask.
Yeah, I mean, finally the flask has something more of a purpose, and I like that. Yeah, that was
because they do have him. We see this flask 2 or 3 times before, and so then for it to be a weapon here, I was like, oh, okay, that's actually a good. Hey, good. that's how much I'm disappointed in this movie. That this makes me go like, hey, good job, movie. You set something up and paid it off. Because like we're talking about, there's just a lack of payoff in this movie.
True.
So Rutger Hauer shows up. I like her busting out the cross and it catching fire, and then she uses her hairspray to shoot the fire at Rutger Hauer.
Yep,
that was cool.
That's a payoff of her thing about what makes you a unique slayer, and she goes, my dazzling fashion sense or something.
Yeah, my keen.
Here's my keen fashion sense. So here she's using something that only a girl would use.
Yeah.
Well, maybe
that only a girl would carry. It is interesting that she just carries a little can of hairspray with her everywhere. And she hits him with that. This is also where she stakes
Lights
Ruben's.
him up.
We've already talked about Ruben's death and how hilarious it is.
It's great.
It's great. This is also where we see Alexis Arquette as the vampire DJ who takes over for the previous DJ who was Slash.
That I knew.
Yeah. Guns N' Roses Slash.
Yeah, what I thought was hilarious is the DJ booth has, the turntables and all that, and there is a record prominently displayed faced out. And I kept going, well, that would be clever if that were like a Guns N' Roses album, or that would be clever if it tied into... But what I found really funny is, in this dance, this is where they're playing Toad the Wet Sprocket. Yes. This is where they play... in other words, all the things that they play aren't even the bands on the soundtrack. I mean, the bands on the soundtrack are not what the DJ has in front of them. That album cover.
Well, no, because
and the album cover doesn't tie into Slash, and it doesn't tie into Alexis Arquette. So, what is the point? It's like, if you're going to call attention to something, have
I know. Yeah, well, because it does feel like it's like, well, we put this in, and we'll see what music we can afford when we get to it.
That could be it. Yeah, it could have been a later, just, we got something. Okay, let's use this.
So this is where Stephen Root's giving detention to corpses. I do like Stephen Root's line, and it made me mildly chuckle when Rutger Hauer busts in here with the katana, which, by the way, comes out of nowhere, the fucking katana. What the hell is that? I don't mind him having a sword, but, like, why is it a Japanese sword? I don't.
Yeah.
Anyway, but I do like...
he's several centuries old.
I do like Stephen Root going, okay, that guy is definitely not a student. That feels Whedon. Once again, that goes back to that, where it's just... Because it's just... Yes. That's very Whedon. Whedon will do a lot of the just kind of quiet asides like that in the middle of action. Yeah, I just like the guy, and him just being like, "All right, I'm giving up. That guy doesn't even go here."
Delivered, great by Stephen Root.
Once again, who is just, that guy is truly one of our finest actors. He makes everything better.
And the man can do anything.
The fact that he's like, in a year or two, he's going to be on news radio after this.
Yep.
And I loved him on news radio.
What a great character. And then whenever you've seen him play a real dangerous type scuzzball, you're like, holy shit, he can do that too.
We raved. You and I both loved him on Perry Mason recently, where he was a real deal bad guy on there.
And on Barry, all the shades he gets to bring to that character on Barry.
Barry is one of the best parts he's ever had. That show.
Yeah, absolutely.
He lucked out, and they lucked out that they got him both. And then he's doing a great job on as the voice on Masters of the Universe.
Yeah, you know what? It turns out, I have to say, he apparently is a talented man.
Absolutely, and it's amazing. You look at that guy
again. People come to us for the hot takes, and there's another one.
Stephen Root,
talented man.
I was just watching No Country for Old Men, and he's fucking great in that. He just pops in there for like a scene, and he has that great scene with Woody Harrelson.
If the Coens are smart, always put Stephen Root in.
They
Just
frequently
always.
do. They frequently
Yep.
do. So he busts in with a katana. And of course, being the guy I'm going like, I'm sorry, this wooden flagpole is going to stand up to Japanese steel? I guess he hasn't been sharpening that thing because
Or maybe it's a steel flagpole.
it's
No, that's right. It snaps.
It's
That's right.
clearly because it's clearly wood because she's going to impale him with it like it's a
Right.
stake. And
Right.
god damn, it's like clang clang, staked. Lothos is done.
I know. A guy who apparently has been around since before the birth of Christ.
And she takes him out with no issue whatsoever. And this
No,
guy is
and
the
it's
ultimate
totally
vampire.
flatly shot, and there's nothing to it.
God, I just thought, how lame is this? And then we pull Luke Perry out of the rubble, and he's okay. And they dance, man, while everybody's getting loaded in ambulances and stuff. The two of them have their romantic dance before they get on his bike and ride off into the sunset, or sunrise, I guess.
They ride off into the sun thing.
Boof.
No
No good, man.
Yeah.
That doesn't work for me at all.
No.
Yeah. So that's this movie.
But then we have to talk about all the credits shots.
Oh, yeah, man. This was Marvel before Marvel.
All it is news footage, interviews, post-event. Weirdly,
We had Hilary
Liz
Swank in there.
Smith.
Yeah.
Liz Smith, the film critic for some reason, and television critic.
I don't understand this cameo.
Is a news reporter, but she's playing Liz Smith, which was weird.
Because she
So
wasn't
she's
a reporter.
reporting
She was
on
a movie
LA
critic. Yeah.
News, and that
Yeah.
makes no sense. But she's like, okay, we don't know what happened here, but apparently a riot broke out at the
Yeah.
local high school during a dance,
I
and
don't know.
and here we're interviewing the principal so he can say something wacky. Now we're going to interview Hilary Swank, who's got brain
what
damage
does
now.
Stephen
and-
Root say? He has some line in there about some bullshit. I can't remember.
Yeah, me either. I don't remember many of the jokes, but
I
it's
just
all
watched
about.
it yesterday too, and they're gone.
Oh, the really disturbing one is the friend that slept with the boyfriend.
Yeah.
And the boyfriend is trying to be tough. Like he goes, well, I saw the danger signs. I tried to get as many people out as I can. But then she is crying, looking at him, and she goes, I can't believe I let you do that to me. And it's like,
Jesus.
this is disturbing.
Yeah, man. I
was like, what?
I just remembered what the Stephen Root bit is. He's talking about in Vietnam and such, and then they go,
Oh,
"Were you
right.
in
And he
Vietnam?"
goes-
And he goes, "No."
He goes,
but
yeah, I saw
saw
this a lot in Vietnam. He goes, well, I wasn't really in Vietnam. I saw Platoon.
Yeah, hilarious.
That's weak.
That
weak.
is weak. Yeah, that is
That's
Stephen Root,
something
who
that a
has
Stephen
been
Root
funny.
can't do
Even
anything
get-
with.
That's a sign of a bad joke. If Stephen Root can't sell it, then you're
Yep.
just cut it.
But anyway, so that's how we, I guess, get our wrap up
God.
of the events of this.
Yeah.
And luckily, Buffy Summers ends up moving to Sunnydale and Sunnyvale.
No, Sunnydale.
Sunnydale,
Yeah.
right?
Which is on a Hellmouth.
Yeah, she moves to the Hellmouth, and
God,
things get a lot better
I just love that show.
and a
so
lot
much.
worse.
I love that show, man. It's so good.
I love that show. There was a lot of elements came into play, and its first season's a little rocky, but they get
First
there.
season
just
is
like
a
any
little
good
rocky. It
show.
has its gems, but season 2 and 3 in particular are amazing.
Boom.
It stumbles a
Boom.
bit in season 4 after Angel leaves, but then I think it really 5, 6, and 7.
And did we get a gift that was known as Allison Hannigan? Yes,
Oh.
we did.
Well, they get that whole cast, man. Charisma Carpenter's great, and Allison
And
Hannigan.
Nicholas Brandon's amazing.
Nicholas
but,
Brandon's
but
amazing.
It, you know,
Yeah, he's great. Boreanaz, who I love. That's
Yeah.
a guy who I followed from Buffy to Bones.
James
to...
Marsters. And,
Marsters.
what's her name?
Oh, it's Juliet Landau. Because once again, talking about
Yes.
having some good DNA, Martin Landau and Barbara Bain are your parents.
She needs to get back out there.
I
What
agree.
happened to
I
her?
love her. I don't know. She looks a lot like Barbara Bain, who I love because I love Mission Impossible and Space 1999.
I wish I could say I loved Space 1999. Even as a child, when it was first aired and we were starving for sci-fi.
Oh, man,
it
you
was
didn't
the
like
most
Space 19?
boring. It
Oh,
was
I
the
love
most
Space
boring. Even when
1999.
they brought in an alien and she was a boring alien, I was like, Jesus Christ! And everyone was 48 years old in that show. It was like maybe a little bit of pandering to youth, maybe a little bit.
That's kind of what I
Everyone's-
liked about it. They're pros.
Well,
man.
it is actually. There should be representation, But that show doesn't give you any young person representation. It is all middle-aged people on a moon base.
And then can we just finally say, seriously, R.I.P. to the great Luke Perry, because
it's just unbelievable.
It's not okay that he's gone, really.
No, it's not. And again, whether or not I'm as huge a fan as you, I recognize a talent and apparently incredibly nice guy.
That's what everybody said.
Should have just been working forever.
Yep.
And should not have died at his young age.
Yeah. Sudden, massive stroke, man. Just took him away.
People, you know, and I'm saying this for myself, as now that I'm 53, maybe going to the doctor every now and then and getting that checkup is a good idea.
Unquestionably. Please do that, people. That saves lives. It really, really does.
Yep.
And I've had...
If our review of Buffy the Vampire Slayer can get just one person to get a checkup at a hospital...
Well, I will say, and speaking of that, my mom suffered a pretty serious stroke several years ago, and
no, it is true.
It's not. Yeah, it's
you got to look out for that stuff, because it can just pop out of nowhere, and you're doing fine, and you drop dead.
Absolutely. So, But so on that note, and sadly not R.I.P., but basically R.I.P. to Christy Swanson too. Because I'm just saying, man, if we could trade QAnon Christy Swanson for more Luke Perry.
At this point, though, as I said before, what was your favorite uncredited guest appearance?
Oh God, jeez. I mean, I gotta go with babyface Affleck. I think
I knew you would,
because it really. I mean, it was the one that in the movie made me go, "Oh my God!" I didn't remember that at all.
My favorite is a person you see for scant seconds.
Oh, I think I know who this might be. Is it somebody?
Green.
Yes, I was gonna say it's somebody from the Buffy TV show. That's
I know.
Oz
That's
the werewolf.
What blows my mind. Little tiny Seth Green is a vampire in a scene, and you barely make him out. But
he said it's a thing where he said, "Yeah, I got cut.
He had been cut
out," and then somebody's like, "No, you're in it for like 3 seconds."
And so Seth Green is my fave simply because he's the guy that bridges. Technically, he's bridging those two. The movie and the TV show. Now, true, he's not playing Oz, but whatever.
Yeah.
I love that one person survived this movie to go on to be in the show.
And one of my favorite characters on the show. I mean, I love Seth Green in general, but I love the character.
I love the idea of Oz, the sort of weirdly poetic, alterna musician, nerd werewolf.
Yeah.
Great character. And I know how important Willow's coming out was for her character, but I will say I always loved the Willow-Oz relationship. So
totally.
Well, again, I also loved
Tara.
Amber Benson's character. Yeah, Tara. I couldn't remember her name for a second.
Oh God, man, you talk about one of the biggest gut punches of a character death in the show.
Oh, dude.
Gergoni will still tell you about that. He was like inconsolable for a couple days after that.
Dude.
Yeah. That's still where he's
Did I tell you that she was sitting in the row behind me at the live taping of Drew Carey?
No,
when I was
Amber Benson?
Amber Benson was just there in the audience. Like, I guess she's a fan, and it was one of their live episodes. And since I worked on the lot, I attended, and it was so much fun.
That's great.
They ran up into the crowd, the camera.
Well, I'm jealous you got to see that in general, because I was a huge Drew Carey fan.
It was great. It was great. It was. I was only in the West Coast audience.
That show was That show was like one of the first kind of alternative comedy things that I saw on like Network T, where I go, this show's weird and different.
It's true, and especially towards that end, it was so strange there in the 99, 2000, where it was a briefly lived thing. But Warner Brothers TV, they were like going, "Let's do a live ER."
Yeah, I remember that live ER. I was also a big ER guy.
I stood out on the, I was not in it, but I stood out and watched them shoot scenes of it. And I was there for the live filming of Failsafe with George Clooney
and Noah Wiley, both from you.
Yeah. And I just watched, and our good friend Rhodey, Don Cheadle. And I just watched them run between sound stages, changing clothes because it was live. It was kind of great. I didn't get to watch them film it because it was all inside. But I'd watch them suddenly break out of a soundstage door and get a different hat and run into another door to film a scene.
That's awesome, man. That was great too. I love that. I wish
we're
they did
still
more
doing
live
our
TV.
podcast right now.
Yeah. Oh, right.
I'd say Buffy's a Buffy's a recommend. It's not bad. It's not great.
It's
not
a mild recommend.
For me,
it's not
literally
bad,
proof of concept.
It is proof of concept, but I would say it. The reason I don't say recommend is because it's unnecessary in a world where the show exists.
Yes, but it is.
I would
Donald
say just
Sutherland,
watch. Well, yeah,
it is,
and I mean, you know what? It is Luke Perry that makes a difference to me. Really, it is sort of like I do think this is one of the few times that Luke Perry got to really shine in a film.
Well, he gets to cut loose out of that persona he was.
I think that is nice, and I said
long.
watching it, it bums me out that he did continue like. He did a lot of brooding westerns and stuff like that.
Yeah.
After the, it is a rare thing where I do love his uncredited cameo as the American Inspector Spacetime on Community.
Yeah,
the idea that he would be Pierce Hawthorne's vision of
with
Jenny Garth.
With Jenny Garth.
Oh, I love that, of course. So yeah, that's gonna do it.
Easy.
Next week, a very different vampire movie that comes from one of my absolute favorite filmmakers. Next week, we are watching Guillermo del Toro's Cronos. Oh, what a great movie.
And so, like, when I saw it, that was before I knew who this man was.
Well, this is how he
Mr.
burst
Del
on
Toro.
the scene, man.
And all I could sit there was like, what the fuck did I just see?
But I mean, it really is one of those. But it really is one of those like, oh my god, here's a new voice in cinema.
And this is a vampire film, but it is. I would say this is one of our tangential ones where
I went back and forth going, does it count? And then I went, I don't care. I love it and want to talk about it. I love this movie, and I have the criterion of it, and I just adore it. I mean, I have all of this stuff.
I'm gonna have to seek it, but
I am like all in. I have all of his movies. I am just a massive Del Toro fan.
The man's a genius.
I can't wait for the Netflix show. I can't wait for his Pinocchio movie.
I can't wait for him to finally do Doc Savage, which he never will.
Oh,
but
I wish. Oh, God, I'd love it.
Or finally do his Lovecraft film.
But anyway, talk about a guy who's one of us. That guy is uber nerd, king of the nerds.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to go to his house with all of his stuff.
Yeah, he's the new Forey Ackerman.
Definitely. And he would what I love is that would really hearten him to hear that, I think.
Yeah. I would love to visit the Del Toro mansion or wherever he wants to end up.
Well, he's got the house,
the Acker mansion.
Yeah, he's got the house that's just for his stuff. He has two mansions.
Oh shit!
He has one that's just for his things, which I'm like,
dream.
As a fellow collector, I'm like, that is the dream, man. A house for just my toys. But yeah, so Cronos next week on the show, which will be a totally different conversation, and I think for the first time we get to talk about our pal Ron Perlman.
We are friends. We're very close friends.
I did so briefly meet him at a convention once.
Did you really?
I did. I just got to shake his hand and tell him what a fan I was. But
all 7'5" of him.
Oh Jesus Christ, he's so huge. Because he's not only tall, he's just big. He's just
one of the things I wish we were covering on this podcast, even though it doesn't fit at all, is City of Lost Children. I talk about a great use of him.
Yeah,
that movie.
He's another guy who will be great even in something bad. So
absolutely. Yeah. But anyway, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, so excited to talk Chronos. So that will be next week on the show, but that's going to do it for this week's episode. And remember, there are such things as monsters. I gave it a little bit there.
I really, you never answered my question about how funky your chicken is.
It's appropriately funky, but my goose is super loose.
Wow, nice. Okay, that's going on your card.
Mm-hmm. And that is my card.
That is.